Damn these Biloxi blues, it happens every night. And I ain't ever met a riverboat dealer that could ever be a friend of mine.
Have not.
The summer heat never treats me kind, it leaves trouble on my mind. So I'm bidding farewell, putting in my notice, and I'll see you at another time. This highway does not know my name, and I don't care, no, I don't care. Heading my way for another place, and I got 3 good tires and a spare. Just a white line gypsy getting out of Mississippi with just enough gas to get there.
Low budget live, not so live, from the LBL Bar and Grill here in beautiful southern Middle Tennessee. And this is the podcast for Monday, September the 12th, 2022. And welcome, you bunch of low lifers. And if you're wondering what a low lifer is, well, you're now one. If this is your first time tuning into this or listening to this, it's what the listeners of this fine program refer to themselves as. So welcome, one and all. This is a weird one. This is a weird podcast. I am having more difficulties with my equipment than ever before, and it's time to take some of the support from these sponsors, and I'm gonna have to upgrade everything, man. It's crazy, and the reason I say that, so I had an in-studio guest this week. As you can see, still got a microphone set up over here, and I'm recording this on Sunday afternoon. I had recorded on Friday with a guest, and came out here and my computer had crashed. All audio was gone. Still had the video file. So at the end of this podcast, you're going to have after this intro here, you will have a podcast that is made from just the audio from the video, not the microphones. Audio is not great, but the stuff was amazing story with our guest, stories. And I wanted to make sure to get it in there. And then also, as it's been documented, there was something crazy that happened this weekend, and I think that things work out. I really hated that I had already recorded. I hadn't addressed this on social media in any way just because it's not my place to necessarily. But Trey Swindle was leading was in second in the Bassmaster Open up the Chesapeake Bay, started the tournament in 5th, had an absolute amazing event, and he was DQ'd. He was disqualified on the last day. Not because of getting information, not because of anything that gave him an angling advantage, but he was disqualified due to not having or not being able to provide proof of having $300,000 worth of liability insurance on his policy. Now, this is something that's in the rules, very black and white. Hank Weldon made a decision to disqualify him. And he couldn't provide it. It's very much on Trey. It was a difficult decision on Hank's part, I have no doubt. But there were lots of things that happened on Saturday. He tried to provide proof, and once Hank looked a little further into it, there was one point he was going to let him fish, and then after digging a little deeper, and he decided to disqualify him. And it's kind of, I don't know, it's sad. It's really sad. Not that Hank made the decision ultimately to disqualify him. Hank's got a job to do. He's a new tournament director. He's got to stand his ground when rules are broken. But where I have problems with this is it's archaic that we disqualify somebody for that. It wasn't like he didn't have insurance. Very much had insurance. He could not show that he had $300,000 just on the boat policy there with him. He had made this change not long ago, and it's not showing up on his policy. This did happen. Of course, Trey, being a young man, 21 years old, still lives with his folks at home on their insurance and things, and they had made some changes, and these changes weren't updated by the agent. I'm hoping that, obviously, you can't get a hold of an agent on a Saturday very often, especially standing on a boat dock in Maryland when you're from Alabama. But I'm hoping that this week he can get some confirmation maybe and then talk some more of the details. But the change was made to his policy, he feels, and Not here to split hairs over that at all. Hank made a decision. But what is archaic is the fact that that does result in a disqualification to me. Not a penalty of weight-wise. Like they give you a 2-pound penalty for a culling infraction, which technically could give you an angling advantage, I guess, like if they're schooling or whatever, over a competitor, catching them every cast and you don't want to take time to cull. Like I understand why that rule's in place, but it's a 2-pound penalty. Insurance, which seems to be very important, complete disqualification, right? But they also only check 2 people per day per event. That's typically kind of their policy. They check number 1 and number 2. So had Trey been in 3rd place, not saying this is right, but had Trey been in 3rd place, he goes out fishing. They never even look at it. They didn't look at it for the 3rd place guy. They didn't look at it for the 30th place guy. So my thing is, if it is that important to have that kind of insurance policy, and it is, and I understand why they do it, why don't you check everybody? Why, once an angler's confirmed in the event, everything's digital, I can't just email you a copy of it? Why don't you check it at registration? I bet they do now. I bet that does change, but it's just, there's just some things in professional bass fishing that just rule-wise that are archaic. It's understood. You're going to have insurance on your boat. And I'm sure this was written because of some issue they had that I don't know about years ago. You know what I mean? Why it is that amount. That amount. And look, I've had sponsors before that have come to me. I had one in particular a few years ago, and I had to keep like a $500,000 policy in my boat because they were on my wrap. I'd never experienced that before. Had to name them on the policy as a whole thing. So insurance is a big deal to a lot of big companies, obviously. And you got to have it. I mean, you're not going to ride around in your boat without insurance. But he couldn't prove that he had enough and enough, to suit Hank. And so here we are. It was heartbreaking. I mean, I have been sick for the kid, man. And I know everybody that was pulling for him is sick for him. It's a simple mistake. It is something that he absolutely should have known better about. He's got that daddy speech from me and Uncle G, I can assure you. But it's just a bad deal on all sides. It's a bad deal on all sides. And I think that he will learn from it. I think Bass will learn from it. And I think this won't be his last chance to have an opportunity to make the Bassmaster Classic. I just think, though, it is a very harsh. I understand why they made it, because he couldn't prove the way everything was written in the policy or whatever, from what I understand. He couldn't prove that he had it at the beginning of the event, and he did. His claims are that he did. And so they just went back and said, hey, from official practice through the first 2 days, I don't see where, in my opinion, you didn't have 300,000, so you're done for. So he gets no money, no points, no anything. And essentially his season's done just because his kid's out here doing it. He's got a couple great sponsors helping him out to a certain extent. But, man, it's expensive. It's an expensive dream to chase. When we talk about the opens, the payouts aren't great, right? And it's brutal. So a check, he kind of was rolling the dice going into this one financially. He was telling me on the way up there, like he was wanting a check. And then he ends up in the top 10. He's like, oh, my gosh. And then he's got a chance to win. Of course, the saddest part about it for me, outside looking in, is the guy that was leading stubbed his toe. And Trey, with what he had been catching, and there were some fish caught in the area by a couple of his buddies, JT Tompkins. Congrats to JT. Ended up winning. He was very much, once Trey didn't leave the dock, they had a conversation. He went to the area. Trey had been fishing, catches the biggest bag that he weighed all week. He ends up winning. And so the what ifs and the woulda, coulda, shouldas will always be out there. And it's very sad that it came down to that, but it's what it is. Rules are rules. And I just think the penalty for that one, and I would say this if it was anybody. I said this with John Garrett there at the Arkansas River in Oklahoma a few years ago when he had that 2-pound culling penalty on a river where a 2-pounder is a giant. Like, you can't make up for that, and it cost him the Classic. Was it a mental error? Absolutely. Did he gain an angling advantage by doing it? Not at all. And I talked about that on here. Rules are rules, but some of the penalties do not fit the crimes at all. and I've been in organizations where a guy will idle through or run through a no-wake zone and get a 2-pound penalty, and then the next week a guy runs through a freaking no-wake zone and gets disqualified. I've seen all kind of stuff. All kind of stuff. And I think that sometimes the penalty doesn't fit the crime at all. And I think in this case, I mean, worst case scenario, give him 10th place. I mean, he fished his ass off all week. But it is what it is. And the rule does read, could potentially lead to a DQ. Random checks will happen, could potentially lead to a DQ. That's how it's read. So it is a disqualifying penalty if you cannot provide the right amount. Like I said, had insurance, had a significant amount, didn't have that $300,000 or couldn't prove that he had the $300,000, and here we are. So tough weekend, and he was going to have a chance to be on FS1, man, and everybody would have enjoyed that. He's a great kid, and I think the resiliency he has shown in this to me, and I've talked to him several times. He has nothing bad to say about the organization. He's beat himself up till he's black and blue. He probably doesn't have any tears left. I know his mama don't, and his girlfriend don't, for sure. Who drove all the way up there to see him, and it's just been a tough one. But I'll tell you what he did. That I got almost emotional over was he stuck around. His boat was in the water. And he went and followed his buddies, JT Tompkins and Kyle Austin, who had great events. Obviously, JT won. Kyle top 5. And he stays with Kyle. Kyle's a running buddy of Sam George's. And they've all gotten to be buds, and they're all trying to make the elites, and they're all great young fishermen. And he stayed in the camper with Kyle this week. And he went out and cheered them on, posted about them on his Instagram story. Went to the weigh-in. He didn't break every rod in the boat. He didn't shoot birds. Screw bass and floor it back to Bama. He acted respectful, and I'm real proud of him. I'm proud of him for that. I'm proud of his performance this week. There's no doubt about it. He could have won the event. And it just sucks the way it worked out, man. It just does. But he will bounce back. It won't be his last opportunity. I can assure you this kid he's for real, and he's going to be around. So hopefully we can get him on next week to talk all about it. And he just feels bad. The part that has driven me the craziest is just watching 30 and 40 and 50-year-old men giddy and gloating in comments about a 21-year-old making a mistake like that don't know the details, that don't know everything involved. And, I mean, I'm talking about, like, some crazy stuff. Like, I got sideways with a guy that decided to insert himself on a post that I made about Trey going in. I'd made one Thursday and Friday. And I don't get on social media much on the weekends. I try to avoid it best I can with a lot going on. And this guy came and was like, oh, he's not in second place now, LOL, and took shots at him. And I just don't, I take such offense to that. Like, how could you be just a 50-something-year-old dude hating on a 21-year-old? Like, it's bizarre. But unfortunately, it's the world we live in. There was so much negativity that came out of it. A lot of positivity too. We all tend to dwell on the negative comments, and for every 10 of those, there are 100 people that absolutely pull for that kid day in and out, and he knows it, and he's felt that love and support. And I saw it on the post I made about him, trying to get everybody to wish him luck and keep him fired up and know that people are thinking about him and caring about him and pulling for him. I saw that, and I'm grateful for that, and I know he is too. I've talked to him multiple times since this has happened. So just a bad situation. My advice to you is, if you are someone that is so bitter and so jealous in life of your own situation versus a 21-year-old kid, before you hit send on your stupid comment or your stupid post or whatever, just kind of think about it for a second. Think about, how will this make me look like a jackass? and you've accomplished that. Many of you have. And I hope the people were posting this on his girlfriend's post about him. Like, what? On Trey's post. Like, you don't think that he don't feel like garbage right now? He knows what opportunity this was. He knows all about it. But it's between him, the organization, Hank Weldon, and that's it. That's it. He didn't do anything wrong. He didn't he didn't advance himself in any way. So whatever, silly. But yeah, I just wanted to touch on that, man. I've been you can probably tell it about it. I'm just kind of like bleh for a lot of reasons, but that one's at the top of the heap this week, man. Just rough. So got to thank the sponsors real quick of the show. Y'all know I'm fired up when I jump right into a topic because some of y'all be bitching all the time like, well, you need to start when you talk about fishing. When you going to talk about fishing? So there you go. Get your fishing fix out of the way. Now I got to thank the people that make this all possible, and I need to desperately get some new equipment. So we got to keep the sponsors around for sure. Folks like StarTron, kicking ethanol in the teeth in your weed eater, in your chainsaw, in your side-by-side, but more importantly, in your outboard engine. You're fixing to go to storing that boat this time of year. Some of y'all, you fixing to get iced in here in the next couple months. Some of y'all just like me, you're going to be picking up the boat. You're not going to be taking the boat out of the garage as much. If that boat sits for 2 weeks or more with fuel in there, ethanol can absolutely trash it. You're going to want to store it with StarTron. A little dab will do you in the tank. This bottle treats 256 gallons. This is a big old bottle. It's a big bottle, 16 ounces, 256 gallons. Go buy you one, keep it on the shelf in your shop, put it in there. Take a bottle, put it in the truck. Every time you get gas, a little dab will do you. StarTron, kicking ethanol in the teeth and bringing you LBL. Pro Guide batteries, rocking them lithiums. Rocking them for over a year now. I've had zero issues. Absolutely love the lithium batteries. They've got new award-winning lithiums. You need to check them out at ProGuideBatteries.com. I'm running that 31 AGM for a cranking battery. I've had zero issues. Absolutely impressed beyond words with these batteries. You can use code LBL10 to get your own at ProGuideBatteries.com. Baitworks.com, one of my favorite websites to visit. The online tackle retailer. They're adding new things daily. They've got boat parts, you name it. They got it. Huge selection of mega bass. They got Berkeley flatworms in stock last time I checked. Adding things daily. The new Toad Thumper frogs are coming very soon. A lot of people are making posts about it. I got to throw a Toad Thumper around Friday afternoon a little bit, and I can tell you it absolutely walks like a dream. Me and Alex Davis were talking about this frog. He's like, dude, I think it's the best walking frog ever. Easiest to walk. It's really impressive. You're going to want to check them out very soon. Baitworks.com, bait-works.com. Use code Duncan-10 to save you some cash and let them know you are a lowlifer, and I certainly appreciate you for that. Last but not least, hang the banner, the Bassmaster Classic winning banner, the high-performance 21-foot aluminum bass boat, the Express X21. They got more trophies stacked up out there in that lobby. It's nuts. It's in the last couple of years, they've just won everything and taken over the bass fishing world by storm. I'm running the new LE. It's got that C-deck bow to stern and the 250 Yamaha show on the back. You can check them out at a local dealer if they have one in stock. Fingers crossed, they are a hot commodity right now. If you see me at a boat ramp or something on the road, come up and say hi. Not getting to fish as much as I would like to, but come check it out. I promise you will be impressed. Express Boats, building excitement since 1966. All right. I got one more thing I want to discuss before we get into this with our guest that I've had to do some doctoring on the audio to make this even something that I would halfway pay attention to. But the stories were so good with our guest, I had to. But I mentioned last week that there were big rumors about the pro circuit and Major League Fishing making, yet again, more changes to it. You know, one of the first things they did when they bought FLW was they killed the Forest Wood Cup. Rest in peace, Forest Wood Cup. They killed it, and they made some changes to the pro circuit, and some things it's just been weird for me. A lot of the things, obviously, and I made no bones about it, and I got the heck out of Dodge in 2019, decided not to come back and deal with the roller coaster. So word on the street is, and this was announced not to pro circuit anglers, not to your anglers that pay entry fees to the pro circuit. A lot of those, have paid them for a very, very long time, have supported that organization for a long time, long before MLF. They didn't have this meeting with them. They had it with BPT anglers. at the Mille Lacs registration, and they laid out their game plan and what they're going to do. And so supposedly this will be introduced this week to the pro circuit anglers. But the word's all over the place like wildfire. It was before this meeting. I think it's leaked on purpose by guys just to kind of soften the Band-Aid getting pulled off. But going to be called the Bass Pro Tour Invitationals now, supposedly. Not sure on that, just hearing that. No championship. Kill the Forest Wood Cup. And now the title championship, the Super Wrestling Belt Tournament that did pay great, $200,000, is gone. It's over with. Everybody got a check that made that, so those $10,000 guaranteed checks gone away. If I was them, I'd slap that $200,000 onto Red Crest and make it the biggest payout in bass fishing championships yet again. But you could assume this might be just going to the bottom line. Who knows? I don't look at the books, but this is definitely a financial decision. Everything points to that. But there will still be 6 pro circuits, and there were several different options on this deal, or choices, routes they could have gone with this, supposedly, from what I was hearing, that they'd been kicking around. But the rested on 6 events, supposedly. Like I said, don't know. Could change overnight, especially if some sponsors get pissed or anglers get pissed and they end up with 2 people fishing it. Who knows? I don't know that that'll be the case. They'll probably be full again. But anyways, 6 tournaments. Bass Pro Tour anglers supposedly can cherry pick whichever ones they want. Don't have to fish all 6. I think to be in the field, you have to fish all 6, though you will have to sign up for all 6 anyways to get in. If you're non-Bass Pro Tour, I guess this is still how you qualify for the BPT. I truly have no idea. Be interesting to say. I guess it is. And then, FLW known for those $10,000 paydays way down into the field, 60s, 70s sometimes. Those will go to 30th place. Is word on the street. So no championship, crushing the payout, $5,000 entry fees. I don't know. It's sad. It's sad for a lot of reasons, but mainly it's sad for the history and the legacy of FLW and its anglers that came through there, the Dudleys, the Andy Morgans. Now, granted, they're on BPT, living their best life. That's fine. But those AOYs and those wins and the money that they won, that should always matter. Brian Thrift's runs at FLW, like all of that should matter. But they killed or are in the process of killing one of the best trails in bass fishing history. Period. End of story. I don't care how you look at it. They just are. And I think from the jump, they didn't want it there. I mean, obviously they killed the Cup because it competed with Red Crest. And frankly, it's a bigger event than Red Crest, right? They're trying to get their wheels under them with Red Crest now, and had an expo this year. And I talked to folks that said it was pretty good, right? They're attempting to do things, but killed one of the biggest championships in fishing history. One that we saw give away $1 million several times, different things. But I think just overall, they didn't know what to do with the tour level. They bought it for BFLs and Toyotas. What were Costas when they bought it? Ultimately, I think that would make sense, right? They needed a feeder system, but you don't need 3 layers of a feeder system. Bass doesn't have 3 layers of a feeder system, unless you count the Federation, because they don't have that weekend trail, that BFL style trail going on at Bass anymore. So it's interesting, man. It's interesting and it's sad. It's not to just be a complete Debbie Downer on this podcast, but it is. History should matter. History should matter. Your past should matter. And good or bad, right? If you had a horrible past that led you to overcome things and be successful, like, you shouldn't forget those days. If you had a lot of hard work, dedication, blood, sweat, tears that led you to where you're at, you shouldn't ignore that either. If you have a history of whatever, shouldn't forget it. Shouldn't forget it, no matter what. And I think that's the toughest thing for me when you see an organization get bought out or things change. It is very much like and it's not just this situation. It doesn't matter whether it's a boat company getting bought out, rod and reel company. I work for a company that got bought out. Things do change. I have been looked at in business and said, it doesn't matter what you've done. So what have you done for me lately? Like, it's sad to me that we do live in that kind of world, right? That I don't care how you got here. I just want to know what you're doing tomorrow. No matter, you got scars on your back from getting to where you're at, right? And new people, like in this instance with MLF, are benefiting from your years and years of hard work and strife and emotional roller coasters that being in the fishing business can, but they bought it out. They swiped their credit card. So now they own it. They can do whatever they want to with it. That's all fair. That's all fair. But you can't step on the past. And they already did that when they killed the Cup. Very much so. Very much so. And now they're doing it again. And be interesting to see what pro circuit anglers think about this. I'm hurting for a lot of those guys because there's not a lot of, you got MPFL out there as an option. But MPFL's got over 100 guys. We'll see next year what happens. But, how many of these guys could they end up at MPFL? Hell, I would love it. I'd love to see a lot of these guys fish with us. I'd love to be able to take on all of them, but may not have enough spots. Then you can't just switch over to the Elite Series. And what I mean by that is the payouts these guys are accustomed to that make their living or a chunk of their living from the FLW Tour, Pro Circuit, whatever you want to call it. And payouts reduced. Do you stick it out? Do you keep giving them your $5,000? Is this one of those things where something else is probably coming? This was just the start to ease the Band-Aid off, because I do feel like they will kill this all the way around or have to make some kind of adjustment where the Toyotas, I don't know. I like that it's hard to describe what they might have to do, and that may be the shape they're in, right? I don't know. There's no clear way to do it. I just know that you made one of the biggest trails in the country, AAA, or tried to, and then your guys come down and fish it, right? Which happens in the Opens too. Win an Angler of the Years, whatever. And that saves spots for the BPT guys. It's a convoluted, very bizarre setup that they have. And I don't know what happens with that pro circuit. I hope nothing. I hope it continues to be successful. It's a trail that needs to exist, in my opinion, in this fishing world. I don't know. We shall see. Time will tell. But that news supposedly going to come out to the pro circuit guys this week, or officially tell them. It's been everywhere over and over and over. But I just, so many things, man. They do a lot of things different, and they do a lot of things that are great. And then they do really dumb stuff too. Just really dumb stuff. And they do it with an ego bigger than a mountain, and they just don't think about the history, like I said. And there's a lot of that in business. There just is. And at the end of the day, that's, trying to be profitable. So I don't know. We're going to see. We are going to see. So back to the disaster that has been this podcast this week. And I had to re-record this intro like 4 times today because, Lord have mercy, my equipment's just pissing me off. But I was able to have a guy in here that I love to give a hard time to. And a lot of people do. And he likes to dish it out too. And he's brash at times, and he's in your face, and he stirs some folks up just like I can at times. But he was shooting with Gerald Swindle this week, doing some things, shooting some content for Bassmaster. And I saw he was there, and I was like, dude, you should stop in the bar and grill. Come check it out. And so on Friday, Ronnie Moore and I recorded this podcast that you're about to see, this section of it. I had recorded an intro already, like I said, but I was grateful for the opportunity to be able to talk about Trey's situation a little bit, at least give my 2 cents on it at the first of this, and was kind of bummed out I'd already recorded. So everything works out for a reason, I guess. But what you're going to hear audio-wise in this, the video's fine, like always, looks like it always does. But what you're going to hear audio-wise in this is not the best audio. It's not running through the mixer. It's just the camera. So if you're listening to this on an audio platform, Spotify, iTunes, Amazon, whatever, you will notice when this clip starts that it's going to sound different. So just be prepared in that. I hope that you enjoy it. Check it out, even with the turd audio that you're going to hear. There's some great stuff in this. Ronnie has worked his way up from intern at Bass to working with the website, doing several things, to now being on the damn desk when they go live on FS1 and on Bassmaster.com and sitting next to his heroes. And he's got really, really phenomenal stories about how a lot of this went and some cool things from his past that you're going to hear in this interview that made him emotional, made me emotional. to hear him and hear the excitement in his voice. But Ronnie is he's a good dude, and I'm proud to have him in studio. So, ladies and gentlemen, enjoy this. I apologize again for the audio, but it is what it is. We're getting you a show this week that I was proud to be able to shoot with Ronnie. And go check this out. This is a good one. It's a little long. It's a little long because he and I both like to run our mouths. But ladies and gentlemen, Bassmaster host Ronnie Moore. All right, here we go. As promised, the man, the myth, the legend.
Not yet.
Not yet. He's working on it.
Yeah, myth for sure.
Ronnie Moore, I appreciate you stopping by, dude. We talked earlier this week. You've been on the road. You and your man Tristan, y'all been gathering up some amazing content for Bassmaster. And I'm like, I saw you were at Uncle G's house, and I said, dude, you've kind of got to go by me on your way home. But
there's not really many roads that do go through here, so that was about as close as you can get.
So I did intro you by saying we like to give each other a really hard time, and we're kind of no holds barred always since we've known each other. Even when I was fishing FLW, we were constantly back and forth. And Ronnie's exact statement was, you don't exactly live close to anything.
Yeah, and
for the in-studio guest situation here at the Bar and Grill.
I knew as soon as you texted me. I mean, honestly, you might think that I'm a legend or popular. If somebody texts me and asks a question, I kind of can pick up where they're going with it. Right? Yeah, and so I was like, I would cancel whatever plans I got to do if you're asking me to do something. And so, no, it was super cool, and I wanted to swing by. I've seen this place on Instagram. It's Instagram famous, but I've never seen it,
Bradley Hallman said it's a lot like James Watson. I have a lot of pictures of myself. That's what Watson said. Nobody loves you like you love yourself. Exactly. You and I are the same in that, right? Like, you got to be a little crazy or vain or whatever to want to do what we're doing. Otherwise, you'd be working at like an insurance company.
Yeah, exactly. No, the only other people who love you just as much as you love yourself is your mama and your wife.
This is true, and your baby.
Yeah, which and your for sure. But she needs me though.
She does need you.
Others may not need me.
I will say that in life, I joke that if reincarnation was a thing, I would want to come back as my dogs or my children, because as long as I'm doing what they need, they love me, right? Otherwise, it's interesting around here. And you're just in the fun, man. You're just headed right into it with your sweet baby girl.
Oh, it's the coolest thing I've ever done in my life. It's the only accomplishment I can't really take much credit for. I didn't do 98% of it. I had a small portion to it there, and then all of a sudden I get to reap the benefits of just. Honestly, I love everyone at our church, but I look at Sarah every Sunday and I'm like, we got the prettiest baby at our church, man. She is gorgeous. And I know she's 6 months old next week. I am screwed.
Yes, you are.
10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I am so screwed.
I said that in the intro too. I said, I think, and I every week you're posting pictures. I do think, man, you and Sarah have created one of the most beautiful little girls I've ever seen. So congratulations on that. And I say this to Atkins all the time. He has.
Oh my gosh,
Cooper is like the cutest little boy. And I tell my kids, I'm like, why can't you be more like Cooper? Why couldn't you be more like that when you were little? Like, I think that's your fault, maybe, Dad. A little bit, because you're ugly.
Hey, I only had 3 requests that I kind of control a lot of it with half of my DNA, half of her DNA. I said, I got 3 requests. She has blue eyes. She's almost 6 feet tall, so she can play some volleyball, and I can be a volleyball dad. And she has my skin complexion. I think we got the blue eyes down. She's really a long baby. She's measuring baby. She's so long that she hasn't really fattened up in areas. So everyone at church is saying she's so tiny. And I'm like, I'm going to kill somebody if they talk about her baby being tiny, because she's
going to be a 6 footer, dang it.
She is perfect size for her. And then so skin complexion, I think we're not going to luck out on that. She got a little too red of a tint in hair. She's going to be like Sarah. So I got to keep both of them protected in the shade.
SPF 100 out there on the water. So is it harder now? Because, dude, you've been everywhere this year. Like, this has been the year of saltwater run. I always comment that saltwater run, because I have a huge passion for saltwater fishing. And I have been, proud that you're getting to do that, but jealous, too, because that is a super cool gig. Some of those environments you got to go to. But is it harder being on the road? Because Bassmaster, you're right there in Little Rock. So
yeah, I get to
long days. But you're in studio, but you've been on the road.
I get to tuck in bed at night.
For sure.
Wake up in the morning. Yeah.
But is it harder being on the road for you now as a dad?
I think so. I think, I set up my life as best as we have control over that a couple of years ago when we got the ask, to move to Little Rock. And I said, I love traveling the country. I love being freelance, but the safety and security that full time gives me, and being in one location, that means I get to come home 9 times out of 10 each day of the week. I might work all day, but I'll be home that night, and that was something that I valued a lot, especially trying to start a family. And so this year it's been, and every year, 2016 was the last year we lived in North Carolina, and I worked 35 of the 41 Bassmaster events that year. So I was going on the road, but that got me the opportunity that we did. And so I said, we're going to move here and I'm going to be traveling less. And that was kind of my promise to Sarah. And the next year I did like 6 events on the road. And then the next year I did 3 events on the road. And now I don't do any events on the road for necessarily like photography and Bassmaster. But we're doing a lot more feature stuff. Like we mentioned, Tristan's going with me. We're doing a lot of these lifestyle testimonials, these anglers. Really, honestly, I say those things work so well because everyone knows if you're on the Elite Series roster, you can catch a bass, but they want to know something else about you. And so these things pull the curtain back. But then also we added the Saltwater Series, which is the Sport Fishing Championship. If you don't know about that, look up the Sport Fishing Championship. I kind of resemble it as it's 2022's version of Ray Scott's 1968. You know what I'm saying? Like doing something no one's ever done.
Right.
They have these tournaments for 50 plus years, but no one's ever given them a tournament series structure. They're all single entities that operate on their own. You just happen to see the same people at every one of them. Well, now the Sport Fishing Championships kind of made it into a series, and it's a point structure and all those things. And so I got to go to Biloxi. I got to go to Destin, Florida, and I went to South Padre Island, Texas for those events. And what a great season it was for that. At one point, we had some conflicts. We had an Elite Series event and an SFC event. Yeah. So we had half of our crew, which is not big. If you knew what we pulled off at Bassmaster Live with the crew we have, just imagine cutting it in half. Half of them go to an SFC event on CBS Sports. Half of them do FS1 for 5 hours at Lake Oahe, and you don't miss a beat. So the crew that we work with, and they know, my boss says, hey, you tell me when it's too much traveling wise. And so it's been a blessing to have that come into our lives for a lot of reasons. It's enabled us to be able to have Sarah stay at home with our baby girl and raise her. And so for at least, a period of our life. And so it's been a great 2022 for the Moores. It's been blessed. And honestly, I love what I do. It is hard, getting back to your initial question. It's hard to leave now. But man, it's one of those things, whenever I used to be on the road without a child, Sarah would be like, hey, can you talk? And I'd be like, really? Maybe like in an hour or 2. And then we talk on the phone. If she FaceTimes me now, I answer immediately. I don't care if the president of a company's right there and be like, hey, just a second, and I'll do this, and I'll turn around and show them baby girl and mama, and they smile, and then they, if it's 5 minutes of getting to see her get, in her pajamas for bed, it's the best 5 minutes of the day.
FaceTime came along. Of course, I'm 10 years older than you, but FaceTime came along when my boys were young, and man, it changed the game for a traveling dad. Like I've always, especially in their younger days, I was on the road a lot more than I am now. And it just changed everything. Like those FaceTime calls were just all you look forward to, getting to talk to them, getting to see the changes every day. And that's the reason I asked that question is you were just, like you said, a road warrior, dude. I remember talking to you on a lot of those drives.
You kept me awake on a lot of those drives.
30 plus events. When you were doing the photography thing during the opens, you were writing, you were
college,
you were everything. But how did the opportunity? Because people see you now, you're at the desk, man. You this year,
even if they don't want me,
even if they don't want you, they don't want me there either. This may be the most hated podcast ever. You and I talked about that. I hope not. The people that don't like you are always the loudest, but I think that there's always a lot of people that got your back, and I think that. With the job you've been able to do, these people like the Mike McKinnis's of the world that come from that side of our business, they know what works, right? And there's a reason you're getting that opportunity. But talk about, for the people that don't know, and even me, how did it come about? Because you were immersed in the college fishing, you were out there competing Eastern Carolina, you were doing some things with Eastern Carolina there too, like social media
athletics and stuff, yeah.
But how did the door swing open for you to become an intern with Bass? And like you said, did you force your way into it in your life? We were talking before the show. It's a lot of our life is, hey, this is what I'm going to do now.
Yeah, honestly, get out of my way. I'm going to make it happen.
Yeah, but how did
which
that
is
work
the American dream, So I will honestly say. There's like 5 or 6 key names that I'll mention, but honestly, it goes back to like Hank Weldon, and starting the college
Shut
series.
up, man.
You know, like having him as the leader of the college series in general, no matter what league you fish. Everybody knows Hank Weldon is Tripp's son, but he did a great job of forging his own path with college and raising it to the levels he was at. So my first year in college, I didn't even fish. I worked and I made enough money to be able to, fish the next 3 years, no holds bar, just keep going. So I fished my sophomore, junior, and senior year at ECU, and throughout that time, I fished with so many different partners. I fished with a couple guys who are on the NPFL now, a couple guys who are trying to make the Elite Series, and a couple guys who just own the local region in North Carolina now. But getting to that point, I went to school for journalism and communications at ECU, and that's sometimes a degree field, communications, and it's like if you don't know what you don't do, you're either going to go into business or communications. But that's what I wanted to do. I wasn't lost. I knew exactly kind of what I was good at and what I wanted to do, and it all kind of stems back even before that. I did high school football on the sidelines for a local news station. And so I got an opportunity to see that side of media. So fast forward to college fishing, I was unafraid of posting about what I was doing at school. I was on the sidelines for football games, up in the scissor lifts at practice, at the baseline, getting kicked in the chest, or in basketball games when they crash at the, fast break, they crash at the hoop, they're landing in my lap. Got a lot of awesome opportunities with ECU to do video work there. Behind the scenes, out in front, whatever. And then I was also a writer for the school newspaper, the sports writer. Was never going to do news, was never going to do opinion, was never going to do sports, or I didn't want to be in media, didn't want to do it. Because you can always be it's always a motivating, positive thing. It's not like one of the, if it bleeds, it leads type thing.
Yeah.
So we had, I did all of that in the school system. My best friend in college did radio. That was his path. So I got the best of both worlds. I wrote, I did video, he did radio, so I got to get on his radio show at school and do that. I met a couple key people at those college events like Hank Weldon, who always gave us an opportunity to shine on stage, gave us a chance to really talk about our journey and path. Met Shea Baker. He was the guy. Yeah. He's one of the original grinders.
And he's back with Bass now, correct?
Yes,
right?
In different capacities, not to the full-fledged he was, but I know he's kind of, when you jump in the deep end and, you kind of lose your breath a little bit, it's probably best if you wade back in to really get your feet back under you if you want to make sure you do it. And so I'm glad to see him back and doing the different kinds of content that made him, to the forefront of fishing. So Shay actually called me and said, hey, I know based on Facebook and Instagram that you do journalism. Would you want to work with Bass and do Bass Track? Because he was doing the GoPro stuff.
That's right.
And
the first one.
Yeah, he was the reason I bought a GoPro.
Yeah.
So I always like to say I could go back to the last post of a college event when I fished, and it would be my GoPro recap of my 26th place finish in the regional, because I was the only one who would do a video and just send it in, because Shay was one who really inspired me.
Crazy to think about now, because everybody's like this with their iPhones. Well, here's my recap of how I finished 80th. Or whatever. Exactly. Everybody does a recap. Club tournaments. That's so funny to think that we're not so far removed from nobody doing that.
Oh, exactly. And so making yourself different nowadays, it's a whole other game. Every 5 years, anglers have to reinvent themselves. But so Shay asked me if I wanted to do Bass Track, because he was doing the GoPro. That was kind of becoming a big thing, and he needed some help on Bass Track. So I went and did the live leaderboard thing. I literally called my parents when he asked me. He asked me if I wanted to. Jim Sexton got in touch. I sent in my resume, which was pretty barren. It's probably bigger than most college kids' resumes, but you don't have a lot of experience. Yeah. I worked for my dad's landscaping company, and I worked for a news station who offered a program. It wasn't like I was getting all these jobs. So it was a good resume, but it got me in the door. And I called my parents the next day after I accepted the position, and Jim offered it, and he was like, hey, it's February and the Classic's in 2 weeks. You going to be good for that one? I was like, bags are packed. Is it going to be cold or is it going to be warm? I got to figure that out. So I was already down for it, and I called my parents immediately and said, would you guys mind if push came to shove if I dropped out of college? And they were like, whatever you need to do. And I was like, I'm going to try to find ways, but if there's a teacher that says attendance is mandatory, no, it's not. I was like, I'll find a way.
I'm going to be at the Classic.
I dropped out of 3 classes and took them online, or found a new professor that would work with my schedule. I'm like, I'm in communications. I know you're going to teach me how to write a news article. I already write them every day for the school paper. Can you let me off the hook? Can I do something online and send in my work? This is an opportunity. And I always tell kids who want to do media, hands-on training is better than in-school teaching. I loved all my professors. They keep up with me now. But man, when you have a deadline at 8 p.m. and you're still trying to find your way as a writer, you figure out the best way to phrase things, and you figure it out in the middle of the trenches compared to, let me do this assignment and take 5 hours to write a 2 paragraphs so it passes the teacher's opinion. So all that being said, I took online classes my senior year. That was the spring of my junior year of college. I'm 19 years old. I got an opportunity to work with Bass. I shoved my foot in that door so they couldn't shut it. And I said, I'm gonna do whatever it takes to do it. And so I got my feet wet with Bass Track. I started taking my GoPro. I had a drawstring bag that I used to put my basketball shoes in for the rec center. You know, in high school basketball, I used to put my shoes in there. Well, I put the Bass Track phones because it wasn't an app. That's how it
Yeah.
We had a phone that you had to pass. You had to program the angler and pass it out to 50 people. So I had all the bags, or had all the phones in the bag, and I would take a GoPro photo of an angler bagging his fish while I grabbed the marshal's phone, take a photo of him pulling one out, put a little behind-the-scenes gallery together with a GoPro. I'm getting my feet wet in photography, and then that's where every single opportunity, I wanted to be prepared if somebody was sick. Like I literally said this, if James Overstreet, I had never taken a photo with him, big camera. I said, but if James Overstreet's ever sick and someone needs to fill in, I want to be able to know what the heck I'm doing and have that opportunity. And so I just kind of prepared for the next thing that could be there and be ready. You know, I always tell people, just be ready. Whatever it is, just be ready. And people don't see you get ready because you do it when no one's looking. And so I was like, just be ready. And man, 2016, worked all those events. I get a phone call, Halloween, I'll never forget it, I did a little TV series on YouTube with a couple of buddies. It was called
it was great.
Cast Against the Clock.
I used to text you about that.
Because
you fished some of my old stomping grounds, one of those over on the Tennessee River in Clifton, Tennessee, that area over there.
Yeah, and we did that, and then we also went to Lake Normandy, which isn't far away. That was a little tougher.
Darian and I fished our Shut Up Show Up over at Normandy. It's an hour and a half from here. I'd never been on it.
It's got some big smallmouth.
Yeah, it's a cool lake.
Yeah.
It's a really cool. I beat Darian twice there. I would like to go ahead and throw that out. Shout out Darian, who also just had a baby.
Yeah, it's super cool for him as well. And so, we did a Cast Against the Clock, but we were at Smith Lake, and a couple of buddies one of them fishes the MPFL now, and he claims he's a spotted bass master.
Mike? Is this Mike?
No, it's Trent Paul.
Trent, okay.
He's a spotted bass master, and I said, bro, your worst finish this year on the MPFL is spotted bass, and you've caught 2 top 10s in smallmouth. What's the deal? And so he said, smallmouth are the new spotted bass. So we'll get back to that later, but we did that. I get a phone call. It is Halloween.
You're relentless. I like that.
You should see the NSFW group chat where they really hammer on me.
Yes.
Well, we were fishing. You get a phone call, and he says, "Hey, be ready. You're going to get an offer. It's Halloween when we do this." And then December 16th or December 14th, I'll have to. If I sat there for 5 seconds without thinking, I would be able to remember it. I think it was December 14th or December 16th. I get a phone call. I'm sitting on the couch and I look at Sarah and I said, I got to take this. And I put it on speakerphone, and they offered me the opportunity to come and work at JM Outdoors, which is the production arm of Bassmaster in Little Rock. But I had to move to Little Rock, Arkansas. And I literally remember hanging up the phone and said, where the heck is Little Rock, Arkansas? And so that's how I got the opportunity to be on Bass Live. And what was funny was I accepted the offer because they said, we wanted you to revamp our video portion of our website. Oh, and you'll be, and then it was like a pause, and it says, oh, and you'll be a part of Bassmaster Live. And I was like, sweet, I'm going to revamp the video page. Now I'm like, give me more Bassmaster Live. I love it. And so it's awesome how just say yes to opportunities and be ready. And I said to Sarah, if I retire in 40 or 50 years, fishing industry, I might retire in like 80 years.
I was going to say, do we get to retire in the fishing industry? Look at Bill Dance and Jimmy Houston, man. They're still out there hoofing it.
We don't retire, we downsize.
That's right.
I get a smaller truck, a smaller house.
Yes.
And no, it's been a blessing. But I said, if I retire in 40, 50, 60 years, whatever it is, I will have never applied for any of my jobs. I got called and asked, and I just accepted. And I said, that is a blessing that I can't convey to anybody else. That's just something that, man, when God lines it up in life, I don't care if I try to throw it in the gutter, that sucker's going to go and hit all 10 pins down.
Dude, that is so similar to, and you and I talked off camera about just my life with TH, and then my life with like how FLW happened, and then with that with MPFL and things I've got going on with the podcast. I don't have an extensive resume. Like I don't, because I've been so fortunate that straight out of college, I got the gig with TH that led to so many other things. And it's interesting to hear. And you and I have a lot of friends in the industry that have similar stories, that's how it worked out for them. But what I always try to say on here is people didn't see what you did from 12, from the time you were 12, right? And you were immersed in bass fishing, you and your dad, fishing events, and shout out Ron.
Getting last.
The OG, yeah.
I was the only kid fishing Fishers of Men in North Carolina, and we're facing guys who have fished these lakes for 40 years, and we're like only throwing top water and only throwing a speed trap. Like I thought about this driving on the way here. I was like, God, how many fish would I have caught on those lakes if I knew what a chatterbait was back then?
Or a shaky head. Just
somebody said, hey, have you ever thrown a trick worm? And I was like, does it do something fancy? And they were like, no, it's just straight. And he said,
is that like one of those helicopter lures? What does that do?
So it's super crazy.
It was the same way.
That's like 10 years ago, and you're like, wow. Or not 10 years ago. It's now 15, 16 years ago. But I'm like, man, what I didn't know back then and I know now. I fish less now than I did then. But I know so much more. It's crazy.
I fish, you got the juice knowledge now, and you get that. You're like me.
I actually see more fish than anyone else in the world. I just don't actually get to hold them.
It's crazy, man. And doing the shoots like you've been with G, and you do these behind the scenes, you get to know these guys, but you see the little techniques. You guys get the juice. That's what I've always hitting Zona up about, And now with NPFL, I get that. I'm like, ooh. Look at that right there.
See a little something you just don't mention on the show.
Dude, that is so... Oh
How do you keep a secret in 2022 bass fishing? You just don't say a word about it.
Listen, Dudley and I last year, something would pop up on the monitor and he'd turn and look at me, and we're off camera.
As soon as commercial break hits, you just like...
And he'd look at me and I'm like, giving him this. Don't mention that. We had a situation with Keith Carson down at Wright Patman. There was something he was doing that we noticed. And it was so different from anything that I had seen a lot of people do. And Dudley, who is this all-time leading money winner over at FLW and multiple AOIs and all this crazy, multiple-time Bassmaster Classic.
Been around the block.
And when I saw his eyes light up, because I had already been like, ooh, and I saw him, and he looks at me, and I look at him almost at the same time. I'm like, okay, that's really special. And that sounds terrible, I guess, to people listening at home. Like, well, you guys avoid stuff, but man, I do think
you just don't know how long Keith Carson's tried that until it worked.
That's right. And I think that
holster.
Brad Knight says it best all the time. We have sold our souls in the industry to a certain extent because of YouTube, right? And right, wrong, or indifferent, but because of YouTube, because of Instagram, and now with live coverage, everything is out there. Everybody's shown every secret knot. Everybody's shown how they throw this, because guys are sitting at home. And it's like you said, how do you reinvent yourself? How do you compete with this mountain of content that's just, we're all driven by content, right? And so some guy sitting at home, I'll throw Denny Brower out there just for a name. He doesn't really do social media at all. He's sitting at home. Somebody calls him and sponsors him for 30. Hey, Denny, I'm going to need a little bit more content out of you. Well, he's probably going to give you some juice just because he feels like he has to.
There's a whole generation that hasn't been on tape that we're trying to get on tape because there's so many things. And they have so many stories, so many things. There's so many things that I've learned over the years just watching someone's GoPro footage from a day.
Mm-hmm.
Like they don't even. That's what's funny is people come up and say, "What's your personal best?" or "What's your favorite soft plastic?" 98% of these guys like the same baits with the same colors, and they put it in the same spot. But when they put it there, how they handle adversity, those are the things. And I'll say a quick story before I derail the podcast even more. Gerald Swindle's 2016 AOI season. And I've spent a lot of time. If there's a pro out there that when I was a kid, it was Iconelli and Swindle. They were my two favorites. They were my heroes. Getting to spend time with them on the Elite Series and cover them in a professional manner, I have realized when Gerald Swindle, 90% of the people that talk to Gerald Swindle, they start laughing before he even says the joke. And I said, if you can just restrain and not laugh and not smile and stay zoned in the midst of the funny, he's going to drop a nugget that you might never hear for the next 5 years until someone else says it. And so I learned so much from Gerald. basically I had never followed that rule. I just laughed so much that my face was tired of smiling. Mm-hmm. So I didn't laugh one time, and I heard something good, and I said, I'm going to try that again. I'm going to just listen to him instead of laugh at him. And in 2016, his AOI season, it was one of those things. He was running a GoPro, and I said, hey, G, did you catch him? He said, yeah. And I said, you mind if I pull a couple catches? I'll try to hide baits or try to just doing a couple quick things to post on Bassmaster.com that night. I'll give Lulu the card in the morning. Yeah. We did that. Well, he made 6 or 7 of the top 10s. He was fishing every day of the season, so he wins AOI. I don't know how many times I said I wanted to make a cool video that was the most informative video I've ever seen in my life that you can't. I always say if KVD gave me a square bill and told me what to do with it, I still couldn't do it as good as him. There are things that happen in anglers' minds. Something on the water, a leaf falls from a tree, triggers something in their mind, and they make a decision. I saw Gerald Swindle do junk fishing his way. He has 7 or 8 rods on the deck. He's fishing with one bait for 90% of the day. But in that 10%, he will pick up a rod for a specific reason. And I think it was 55 to 65 different fish catches where he would put down a chatterbait and pick up a jig, first cast with that new rod, catch a fish, put it down, pick up the chatterbait, keep going. And I'm like, I would have rode that sucker for 3 hours and came in and said, I got a bite that led me astray. No, Gerald saw something and picked that up for that one cast, 100% efficiency, caught that fish, kept going back with his pattern. So when people say junk fishing is an aimless thing, he might throw 5 baits in the day. He threw one 90% of the time, and the other ones were the most efficient casts of the day. He was just trying to catch bonus fish with that main bait. I must have saw it 55. And I said, how do I make this video cool without putting me on camera and saying, hey guys, Gerald's going to do something really cool in this video. Just watch it till the end. Because it's just him bending over, which some of the ladies might like, but bending over, picking up a rod, first
please
cast.
Don't give him credit for that. Well,
when he's got his bedazzled jeans on,
and his shirt on, he's like, oh, I just happened to make this Instagram video with my shirt off.
Yeah, exactly. No, but it was.
He's so old. He's old as dirt. I don't know if you know that.
You reel in a cast, bend over, pick up a new rod, flip out, catch a fish, and people are like, that was an awesome catch. That was a big one. That was a green pumpkin jig. They get tied up in all the other distractions. It's like the sleight of hand magicians. You're looking over here, and they just grab the $5 bill out of your pocket. They just pulled a coin out of your ear, and they're, how'd you do that? We get you to believe stuff or see stuff. We focus on stuff, and I just learned so much just watching, not even asking questions, just paying attention. I said, man, how many times can I do that? Can I be smart and not be stubborn and just pick up a bait at the right time? And so there's no doubt. No wonder he's one of the dozen guys that have won 2 AOIs.
Well, you got him, and I was fortunate. I've spent a lot of time with Bubba Gerald, known him since I was a kid. But Wesley Strader was a guy that
fishes
like
similar,
my brother,
yeah.
And they all came up the same way, same trails as Jerry Ryan's going back in the day. And Wesley's the same way, man. Like some of the practice experiences that I had with Wesley, and I've talked about this on here a lot, but he'd be flipping a certain size jig. And he would get a bite, or he'd have a fish chase it out, or something would happen, and be like, you know what, dude, I need to pick up a 7, 8, whatever, like 3/4. You know what, I need to throw a 3/4 ounce jig on. Be fishing in 6 inches of water. And I'm like, but why?
When people would go lighter,
or just go, well, they chased my bait out. I need to throw a spinner, or whatever. And he'd go, I need to go to a heavier jig. And the next treetop he comes to, he flips in, it's like thunk, and I went, ooh. Okay,
I knew Jason Christie was going to win the Classic this year on the final day of practice when he said he went 4 hours without a bite on a dock. He pulled into a pocket and he said, I'm going to catch a fish on one of these 4 docks. And he caught a fish on every one of those docks. And I was like, fantasy.
He's another dude like that. You know what I mean? Obviously.
Oh, yeah. There are hundreds of great anglers around the world. There are guys who won't fish the elites or any other top tour that could, but there's
choose
something.
Not to, or family or whatever.
Yeah. Or just make the sacrifice. There are guys that just aren't willing to get rid of their backup plan and go all in. And that having a backup plan holds you back from the full capability of that game plan. So there are special, out of the hundreds of anglers that know how to catch a bass, there are a special 15 that don't win every tournament, but man, there's something special about them, and they get a blue jacket for the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame in a couple years.
No doubt about it. Now we're seeing throw a guy like Brandon Lester into that mix right now.
Cerebral, just cerebral.
You look at that. Does he? Because he's just calm, cool, and collected. Obviously, I've had him on the show, but his season this year And I mean, it came down the wire. And BP, like, he fumbled uncharacteristically, like at Hawaii, and then the first day or second day up at Lacrosse. You're like, because I recorded early. This was almost a boo-boo on my part. And I had an opportunity. I think I had Spencer Sheffield on. He could record on a Friday. It was the first day. So I'm like, Brandon, I was looking at Bass Track. You guys were covering. He's having a good day. He had the big one on the swimmer and all. I'm like, yeah, okay. BP's kind
of. Man, they way bigger. They way bigger when they look cooler, don't they?
Yes.
You thought that was a 7 pound.
Of course. It looked right. Yeah. Eats a mag.
And he still has 12 pounds, and you're like, oh my gosh.
Well, then the next day, though, I'm watching live that morning. He's struggling. And then I'm watching Bass Track. I'm like, uh-oh. Podcast might be interesting next week if I got to go, hey, congrats to CJ or Lester. But I think, and Chris obviously had an amazing season, but Lester, man, never missed a cut.
Nope, all none.
Gets multiple wins this year. Gets a blue trophy. Gets an Opens trophy.
I'm so mad at Lester. I'm so mad at him because he won the Open, and that was when we were firing the Bassmaster podcast up. Plug that real quick with Kyle Jesse. And that was the first episode was after that. And I said, Kyle, I just have a feeling we've been waiting so long for him to get a win. He's going to be on fire. He's going to win an elite or he's going to win AOY. I said, he's my pick for AOY. And he came up so close. He would make it so smart. I would have pulled that soundbite, but now I can't because it's worthless. He didn't win it, so it's worthless.
He lives 45 minutes from here, and he and we said that on the show this year when I had him on. We don't know each other. We never, for whatever reason, our paths never crossed in local events because of where he fishes Tim's Ford and some of that.
Yeah.
I don't fish.
He goes Gville, you go Pickwick.
Yeah, and we just never crossed paths. I'm like, dude, we got to get because he's a saint, man. He's such a good guy, genuine guy. So congrats to those guys again.
He reminds me of Gerald Swindle, and I know it sounds like it's the Gerald Swindle show, but it's somebody that I just paid attention to their style. I said, I used to say this, if Kevin Van Dam was going to win an event, you'd know on day one because he'll be top 3. And he's going to stay in top 3 the rest of the year. Gerald Swindle will be 28th on day 1.
Yeah.
Move up to 16th on day 2. He'll get into 9th going into on day 3 going into day 4, and he'll finish 5th. And you're like top 5 finish. We saw one day of him, and it was the final day because he just slowly figured it out more and more.
Definitely G.
Yeah, and some guys get discouraged when they don't find it in practice and they're not top 5 after day 1. And there are some guys who are like, I saw something today I can build on tomorrow. They build on it tomorrow and they find something tomorrow they can use for day 3. And so they're a guy, and Lester's one of them. Never missed a cut, had a couple top 10s this year, showed out in Florida, and this is how you know Brandon Lester's good. He's not from Florida, and he is the most consistent angler in the state of Florida, no matter if they're on bedders or not. I think I said in his last, I put the stat up on Bass Live. It was his last 10 Bassmaster events, which most of those are opens and elites, or they're all opens and elites, but I think it was like 6 opens, 4 elites or something. In the state of Florida, never finished outside the top 35, and that's a 225 boat tournament, that's a 100 boat tournament. Never outside the top 35 in Florida. He was our day 1 leader at, I think he was day 1 leader at Harris Chain.
Yeah.
And we had him on camera perfectly so. Day 1 leader at Harris Chain. Fell back on day 2. I was like, dang, his streak might be in jeopardy. Finishes in the top 5. So he's one of those guys that you're not going to know he's coming until he's on your back and he whispers in your ear and he says, I'm here.
Here I am. And he whispers because he's very quiet.
Yes.
Brandon's very quiet. But
Such a good guy. I've been waiting for this.
Oh, yeah.
I think he's got, honestly, out of all the opens, which is the hardest series to get to make money in, I think 70% of the opens he makes a check, which is top 40, and I think 50% of the opens he's in the top 10. It's unreal.
I pulled all that stuff. I actually did some research before I had him on. Not Ronnie Moore and Such type numbers, but I did. He is, I forget what the stat is check wise with Lester over his entire career. Terrifying.
Yeah.
Like the dude is a monster. A monster. And I brought the stat up to him and he just kind of, man, it's, I'm lucky or whatever. But
he's not going to pickpocket you, but you're going to pull the money out and he's just going to somehow have it. And you're going to be like, how'd that happen?
Exactly right. And I love the versatility though when you watch him and the different things. What I gotta ask you, because you're like me. You're passionate, and I think that passion sometimes gets confused for whatever. I don't know. People don't like outspokenness sometimes, right? If they disagree,
or if they're incorrect,
or if they're incorrect. You said it, not me. But I do think that a lot. But this year, when the Opens decision came out, you were very much like, like I was. Like, hey, dummy, shut up and realize you got to be a little more professional than that. I am not tied to Bass in that way. So I can be a little more like, hey, it's not Bassmaster's fault that they're crushing your dreams. There was something you said earlier that made me want to bring this up. You mentioned earlier, you said if you're not willing to sacrifice, or if you're not willing to, give up that comfort factor in your life to chase it, then
if someone's willing to crush your dreams, you let them do that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I've had a lot of podcasts, and Justin and I talked about it in here. I did one exclusively about the Open, just giving my opinion on that. But, man, talk about why you feel it is important. Besides the obvious, I guess.
The format of the Open change?
Yes.
Well, and to apologize to people who are in the comments or to explain why.
Well, you're a company man, Ron. They don't like the company man.
I am the Bass mascot, according to a lot of people. And so that's fine, but honestly, it goes back to what you said. Like this, we are passionate. I love what I do. I don't want to do anything else the rest of my life. If there are bad people within Bassmaster organization, I call them out. My own coworkers. Do it the right way, because you might leave and go to a different job. I want to do this the rest of my life. If Bassmaster goes away,
same way with NPF.
This is what I want to do the rest of my life. I have grown up loving this brand. I had a sticker on my truck. My dad and mom bought me a truck. I turned, my birthday's in July. It's July 4th. So if anybody wants to mail me gifts, it's July 4th. No,
mine's the 3rd, so you can send mine first and then send Ron.
We are
the same
like
thing.
a lot.
We are.
But Christmas, I get my truck keys and a tag. I'm 15. I can't drive by myself yet. And so I have to wait 6 months before so it's just in the garage. I just pull it out, wash it, put it back in, pull it out, wash it, put it back in. I had a Bass sticker on it before I ever drove a mile. That's me before they ever paid my bills. And that's just, I love Bassmaster. It's where I want to be.
But you love bass fishing in general, not
in general.
like
Yes,
you told me.
I watch it all.
I keep up them
I watch it all.
Watching what's going on. Like
I watch most of it. I used to watch it all. I watch most of it. I'm not afraid to talk about that at all. But I don't know.
Let's go. Hang on. Let's go.
But no, I watch it all. I care about fishing in general because I think it's the coolest sport in the world. There's so many variables. There's nothing that's like it. It's a public place with a moving creature, with weather and variables. You can be hero today and there's hope or you can be zero today and hope that you're hero tomorrow. You can think you know it all and be last the next time. I told Trent that earlier. I said, man, every time you're cocky rolling into a spotted bass lake, you don't do well. And so I said, it's just like fishing's a humbling sport. And even if people think I'm not humble, I get humbled all the time. I got humbled watching Tommy Sanders and the way he does his job.
Oh, man.
But with the apologies I was saying when I started this, I'm passionate. People can call me the Bass mascot. They can make fun of me for having my dream job. Whatever you want to do, that's fine. You can't hurt me. The deal is there's a lot of things that happen. Nothing happens in a day at Bass. A lot of these things happen over a year and a half of time and planning and discussion and crinkle up this idea. Let's alter it this way. This is the feedback we got from some anglers. This is the hope that other anglers have. This is what a good business model is, because at the end of the day, it's not the soup kitchen. It's Bass LLC. It's a
business. It's the same with MLF and same with NPFL.
If Bass fails to make money, we unemploy everyone there and the anglers. Mm-hmm. If the anglers make all the money, then the organization will have to close its doors, even if they look so successful. If the anglers have made more money than they've ever made, but we make less money than we've ever made, we end up closing the doors. They end up making
not
the least
sustainable.
money. Yes. So it's a business, and I've learned a lot about business just trying to navigate the struggles that you have with so many different voices coming in your head. The knee jerk. Do you be proactive or are you reactive? And so I think that this was a very proactive way of going about something. So I like to say the change to the Opens was carefully planned out. It was thoughtful. It wasn't with the intent of hurting people's dreams and careers. That's never the thing. It is the thing of separating how many people want to say it's their dream and weeding out those people and making it the people who it's actually their dream getting the opportunity. So I like to say it's like a funnel. It's the perfect supply-demand thing. What happens when we have less Berkeley Maxent flatworms on the market? The supply is low. The demand is really high. Mm-hmm. People buying them for $67 on eBay over here just to be able to use them. Well, we've had the same amount of supply for Elite Series positions from the Opens for years. The same amount of supply, roughly. 10, 12, 15, somewhere in that range. It's been in that mid-teens to single digit right there. So the supply has not changed much, but the demand over the last 5 years has greatly expanded. We went from people saying, well, great change to the opens, you're lucky you'll fill the field, to having 225 people on the wait list. We could have had 2 sets of opens.
Oh, yeah, this year for sure.
And so it stinks when I have buddies saying, what can I do to get in the opens? And I'm like, pray? Like, there's a lot of people who want to
become a life member.
I did tell people that. And some people who did those things,
last year,
I said, there's some people who did those routes that I said, and I always had to put a caveat. It's not a guarantee, but it gets the odds in your favor. Be a life member. Be a nation member. If you have a sponsorship already with a company, see if they have a priority spot.
There are a few, not a ton.
Or when you do get in the opens, catch them good 1 year, and you will be in the first echelon that, the top 25 in each division get the priority to register before everyone else. And so there's a lot of ways of going about it, but the supply has stayed the same and the demand has gone up. So what do you do there to be able to regulate that? You either make them more expensive to drive off the people not willing to pay that demand price, or you make the restrictions harder. You make the road, it's not an asphalt road anymore, it's a gravel road. Who wants to walk barefoot on a gravel road? Everyone will walk on an asphalt road. You got to make it a little harder to see who really wants it, to bring the demand down without having to change your amount of supply you have, if it's not possible, or to raise that price and squeeze those anglers even more. We're going to make the choice there for you. Price stays the same. You just have to fish 9 events to make the Elite Series, and you can still fish 3 to make the Classic. And I like to say after we did that, I feel like I'm a great... When I'm at church, every analogy is about sports. When I'm at sports, every analogy is about some other thing. And so that's my analogy on the supply and demand aspect of it. And so at the end of the day, you're going to have to make a decision. But I feel like we created another tournament trail without naming it or without doing it. We have the Opens 9 events, and we have the Opens 3 events. You can be a college angler now and dip your toes in the Opens for 3 events.
See how you do.
Still be able to make the Classic. You can still win an event and still make some money, possibly, to get your seed money to where if it's time to quit your job and go for all 9, you can do it. And that's the sacrifice. People would have been like, well, if this format was the same back in the early 2000s, Brandon Polnick and Mike Iaconelli wouldn't have made it.
Yeah, whatever.
Because those guys would do, at the time, they did whatever it took to get there. When it changed, when those goalposts change and the whatever it takes changes, they would do whatever it takes. That's what's good about that phrase, because you can say, you got to spend $50,000, whatever it takes. You got to fish 9 events, whatever it takes. You got to travel from California and Idaho to get over here to the East Coast to fish tournaments, whatever it takes. So you got to work 3 jobs in college to get noticed, to get your dream job opportunity, and you don't get to hang out with your friends as much, whatever it takes. And so I think that's
I love it.
And it's hard because you can't say yes to everyone. And I like to say it. I love basketball. If the NBA called me right now, wanted me to be play-by-play or color analyst, I'd really pray about it and think about it because I love basketball. But the NBA was not created for everyone. The NBA was not created for me. I'm 6'1". I played 7 minutes per game in high school at a small county school. And, I just had to play defense really hard to get in the game. I knew the NBA wasn't for me. I don't write the NBA daily and cuss them out because they ruin my dreams. And so the Elite Series is not for everyone, but those who it's for, it brings out the best in you on your path to get there.
Well, and I think the top level of anything, and I said this on the show multiple times, the top level of anything is not for everybody. It's just not, whether that's music, whether, like, everybody sings a little, some people play guitar, there is such a difference in the guys that do it for a living strict. Now, some people get fortunate, they have a song hit, whatever. Maybe they're not as talented as the guy at the bar in Nashville every Saturday night. I don't know. Just saying, there's a difference in the sacrifice. There's a difference in their path. And like you said, talking about when you're in college, everything you've done up to this point sets you up for what you were doing. My life is very much the same way. I worked at TH Marine. I started in 2005. People that listen to the show, people that follow me on social media, started knowing me in 2015 and 2016 around the FLW tour.
In 2013, when I needed a prop nut or something
I
I drove through Huntsville and it was on the doorstep because you were closed and you left one for me.
Exactly.
You know, those types of things.
But people don't see everything. They don't see any of that.
Which they don't need to.
They don't have to. I don't need them. Yeah, exactly. I don't need them.
That's somebody's journey, and it's special. And those stories become less special when you know everything about someone.
Exactly.
Or you know, here's the secret sauce on how to do this. It's the sauce.
But your secret sauce for your life is different than the secret sauce for my life. It's different from Davey Heights. It's different from Mark Zona's. It's different from JT Kinney's. It's different from Kevin Van Dam's. Why I said all those names, I don't know. We were
different from Tommy Sanders.
Different from Tommy Sanders. Let's just say real quick, Tommy's the GOAT. I think we can all agree. Tommy is the GOAT.
Top 5 human being.
He's a fantastic human. I don't know him. I don't know him as well as you do. Been around Tommy a few times, but he is.
Every time he gets sick in the office, like, you know, just a cold or whatever, if those still exist, he gets a cold and he's out for a day at work. In the middle of the week, someone's like, I get like an email. Did you poison Tommy? No, I did not poison Tommy. Because I tell Tommy daily.
Please don't leave.
I tell Tommy daily, I'm coming for you. I'm coming for your job. I want to be Tommy.
I believe that.
I tell him every day, but it's out of the utmost amount of respect. I mean, I can't even touch the monkey bars, how high he set that bar. But boy, I'm jumping to try. And so that man is so patient. He's so smart. He's so funny. He is so versatile. Oh. If you want to name the most versatile bass fisherman, if Tommy was a bass fisherman, he'd be twice as versatile. He can blend in and he could go do Cats on Broadway right now probably, and he could do Bassmaster Live, and he could go do Steel Timber Sports the next day, and then he could go do a sit-down interview. I literally say every day on Bass Live, if I get the chance, Jim Nance wakes up every morning and thanks the Lord Jesus that Tommy Sanders got into fishing and not golf.
Oh, I 1,000,000% agree with that.
Tommy can take Jim Nance's job right now.
Or
anytime.
Any NFL broadcast, whatever. He's just
got the it factor.
I can remember my first obsession with tournaments being covered were the JM days of FLW on ESPN in the 90s. Those were my Bob Cobb, obviously legend. The TNN Bassmasters are some of my favorite. I used to record them every Sunday on my VCR. I had tons and tons of tapes from my mom and dad. But my first time that were coverage really hit me were those 90s FLWs with Tommy and Jerry. Yeah, Jerry hanging out of helicopters in Kentucky. Like, hey, we're covering Marty Stone down here. I mean, it was just crazy. The
stuff
innovation.
That's never been done.
Yeah, that they brought in and it just came out.
I got half the tapes in my truck right now.
Oh, no, yeah. I wish we had a way to play those right now.
I wish. I don't know if we do.
Yeah,
we got to go find out in Little Rock.
Ronnie has a plethora on the back of his truck. That
if you somehow knew we're recording this and you robbed me on the way home,
you won't know.
From the future.
He will hopefully be home safe by the time you're hearing this on Monday, September 12th. But Tommy just always just stood out as this rock, and man, to this day, I'm very jaded in this industry, like you are now. You're talking about Swindle. You're always a fan of Swindle. Well, now you're friends with Swindle. Like you are very much friends with him. Just like I met him when I was a kid, and I'm still his biggest fan. And always will be, but he's my brother. Like he has been there for me in some very difficult times in my life. And he's like family to me. And I love him very much. And I love Leanne very much. But you do get a little jaded because we get to meet all these people in this not fan setup anymore. You know, I'm very, very grateful.
I get to ask Greg Hackney and Gerald Swindle, why haven't you won a classic?
Yeah,
and they don't punch me.
Yeah,
they don't walk
that's
away.
What I'm saying, man.
It's a thoughtful, there are things that bug the crap out of you, and I know it.
Yes, and I get to poke you.
That's where you punch that throttle, hit the clutch, and you push that gear shift through to 7th, 8th. You just put it to the floor, and they have that gear to get ready for moments like that.
No doubt about it.
I get chill bumps watching old Bassmaster shows when I was a kid. You know, I would poop my pants if I was in the Classic.
Of course.
Day one takeoff, they say my name. I'm gonna just
the dinner alone,
fish at the ramp, oh my gosh, you know.
But I say all that being jaded in a good way. I'm very blessed, like you are. But Tommy is still one of those guys when I get around him, just in these little small windows, where I'm like, oh, that's nice. I used to watch Steel Timber Sport. I remember the ESPN, the Great Outdoor Games.
He did the whole block by himself almost.
Yeah, I remember all these things. And now that I am in, getting to do some commentary, I find myself, I'm just like, every time I watch you guys, I'm like, that's something. Just because he's never, like, I'll go back and watch some of the things we do or hear things I say, because I ramble, obviously. I'm good at that. And I'm not as prepared as Tommy probably ever is, but he's never shook. It doesn't matter what happens. It doesn't matter what you throw at him. It doesn't matter, because listen, Zona's a wild card. You know that. Like, and Zona is amazing. And that duo, what they've been able to do, and Tommy's never shook. Nope. He's never shook, no matter the situation. You can't even shake him.
I love our commercial breaks. When we go to commercial break, which Bassmaster fans thinks it's 50% of the show, I do the archive.
Same with NPFL stuff.
It's not. We do 7 hours and it's only an hour and a half, but it's, that's a
Is
lot.
It that much? It's a lot.
Our archive, we have 5.5 hours of actual, but we have, when we take a commercial break, we got live mix going. We have the fish in the corner box, whatever it is, but it's 5.5 hours of the show.
2 breaks an hour.
And we try to emulate the TV show. So we get reps on Thursday, Friday before going into Fox Sports 1, and they have shorter breaks. They have 2.5 minute breaks. So I'm like, I already have my fly undone when we're going to commercial, so I can make sure I get back in time.
That is underestimated there alone in live coverage.
Yeah.
Just trying to go to the restroom.
Someone's like, hey man, I got a question. I'm like, nope, gotta walk out. Come stand in the stall beside me, we can chat real quick.
Exactly right.
But, we have to emulate some of that. But during the commercial breaks, I see Tommy, and Tommy would never say I was his best friend, but I could see Tommy being my best friend. Like, I love being around the guy.
That's awesome.
Because we have fun together. He says things you wouldn't expect him to say. He's funny. He's smart.
Oh, so funny.
He could do whatever he wants. And I will, no doubt, cry the first event we do where he's probably not there.
Oh, I think a lot of people.
I might cry right now.
I think. Let me ask you this: do you have in this relationship you guys have? Has he ever given you advice?
Nope. He never gives advice unprompted. When I ask, he always has something.
Okay.
But I'll ask him. I'll be like, dude, was that good? He's like, yeah, that was great. And I was like, I just feel like I could do that better. And he's like, well, you had the right premise. You just got ahead of yourself.
Okay.
You need to have it in this or whatever. And so
he does. If you ask him, he'll.
Yeah, he is the best man in the world for never giving unwarranted advice. There's always that friend we have that gives advice that you just didn't ask for.
I have thousands of those, actually.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, you talk too much on your podcast that you host.
They want you. This one's going to have comments that says, I'm glad Ronnie paused to let Luke talk. And that's exactly what
No, it won't, because most of the time they're like, you just talk and your guests don't talk.
So,
but they watch it.
But Tommy does it. We have all those friends who want our job and give us unwarranted advice about it. Tommy will never give unwarranted advice. He will watch, have it ready, and in 3 weeks when I finally am humble enough to ask, or, man, what if we did it this way? And he'll be like, well, we used to in 1996, but you'll have a problem that happens afterwards we do it. And I'm like, man, can I come over?
An encyclopedia.
I still don't know where Tommy lives. I know the general.
Come on, dude. That was what I was going to ask.
I know the general region of Little Rock, but I don't know the address. And so I just drive down hoping he's like mowing the lawn. I just see him. No, Tommy, even though I want to replace him one day, he's my favorite. He's one of my favorite people in the world. He's one of my heroes. And if you don't mind, I got a super cool story about how I met Tommy and Zeke. 2010 Classic. Lake, freezing cold. All 97 competitors are in Beeswax Creek. Everybody's catching them though. I'm pretty sure there was a net at the mouth of that creek. They didn't let the fish out. That cold classic, Van Dam won, knocked Creek's hat off his head, all that stuff. I went to that classic with my dad. We went down from North Carolina. That was my first classic I'd ever been to in person on the water. So we did the whole thing. We did on the water. We were up at 3 a.m. on the water.
Doing it.
Cold as can be. Going to the weigh-ins every day, going back to the house, dropping the boat, going to the weigh-ins, being there at the BJCC and Legacy Arena, doing all that stuff in Birmingham. Rest in peace. I think they're doing something to it after the last Classic. They said it's the last main event in that capacity.
It's called
Renovate
now, yeah.
And so we do all those things. They're doing the hooked up stage. If you know and you've been to Birmingham Classics, you got the amphitheater between the convention center and the weigh-in arena, all that, the amphitheater concrete deal. They have the hooked up stage there. Tommy, Z, They got all the guys that I now work with. I had no idea who they were. They're all just still there. They're all lining around it, shooting a show that feeds to ESPN Live. That was back in the day where they did the evening weigh-in. They did the recap, sent it to the show live. And they have all those metal horse, the gates, the fences blocking the fans. My dad, I don't know if he's really been patient his whole life. I get my temper from him. We get riled up because of each other.
You don't get your facial hair from him though, because he has an exquisite mustache.
That and the mullet and everything. He's awesome.
Shout out.
He also never wears pants, even when it's snowing. He's always short. So that's why he lives in Leesburg, Florida now, and that's why it's a perfect place for him. Anyways, my dad, I got a lot from my dad, and the one thing that I got that's underrated that I'll use for the rest of my life was patience when you're around people who others want to be around. You know what I'm saying? When you're at a NASCAR race, when you're at an NHRA race, I mean, I was a racer before I was a basketball player, before I was a fisherman.
You got to be from Carolina.
Yeah, we were go-kart racers. We went to the drag races all the time. Well, in drag races, they pull the car through the pits. They just blew up or they just won. They got to go put it on the jack, take the tires off, and test it before they run in 30 minutes. They're going to do another race. So everyone's just mosh pit. I mean, right around these people at the back of the car. They always have those little red ropes, blocking it off. He would wait and wait. And he had an amazing amount of patience as an 8, 9, 10-year-old kid. I'm like, what are we doing? I mean, I'm like laying on the concrete trying to sleep. And he's like, just be patient, buddy. We're going to be able to talk to our heroes. We're going to be able to get an autograph. We're going to be able to talk to our heroes. He's got a bass fishing book with so many autographs from guys of the sport because he was patient. And so my dad showed patience there in drag race and NASCAR. We used to wait there. The crowd would get bored. It's the last race of the night. They'd all go home, have a party, whatever, go to dinner. We would wait at those, at the fuzzy ropes. 8 or 9 o'clock, the racer comes out. No one's there, just 2 people. You're going to come sign 2 people's things, but if you sign 100, you're going to sign 1,000.
Be there forever, yeah.
So they would always come up. They'd always see the kid. I'd be in my little jean jacket. I had a blue mohawk one time. Like, it's just all this stuff. We got
if
photos.
If your dad's listening to this, I'm going to need a blue.
I got sent home
picture.
from school. I got sent home from school for a distraction with my hair, and I said, "That girl's got pink hair. What's the deal?" But anyways, we'd have the patience there. We get the autographs. We get those cool stories. He actually videotaped a fight in the pits one time, and the guy wanted to buy the tape from him, and he said, "I'll never sell it to anybody. this is something no one else has ever experienced in the world. I get to experience it." So that translated to fishing when we kind of bought a boat. We had an 18-foot Ranger. We ran that sucker into the dirt, everything. I ran it in college. When we went to the 2010 Classic, we did the same thing. So many people in that amphitheater just waiting to see Tommy and Zona. Hooked up thing. It takes a little while. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, it works. Sometimes you have to re-record it. They finish it up. It's late. And it's just me and my dad. Everybody had left. Tommy gets undone. Zona comes over. And it's 2010, so I wasn't super young, but I think I was 14 or 15, something like that. 15, something like that.
I went to county school. I can't do math.
Yeah, exactly.
That quick. Such? Where's he at?
I think I was 16. I was 16. I was about to turn 16. It was a spring classic, so I was 15. And we sat there and talked to Tommy and Zona, and I said, "Hey, Mr. Mark." I never called the respect. I never said Mr. Duncan. It was always Mr. Luke. Yeah. Mr. Mark, Mr. Tommy. I said, "It's nice to meet you, Mr. Mark, Mr. Tommy." And like we just sat there and talked. "What's up, buddy? How you doing?" And I was like, I want to work with you guys one day. And Zona did what every person has done. Just work hard, buddy, and you never know what will happen. Just work your hardest, and you never know what's going to happen. And I remember when Zona called me to come take photos for a Zona show. We'd already worked together some. We started Bassmaster Live my second year on the Elite, so they stopped coming to events and were in studio. So I saw them when I was 19, and I didn't see them for a few years. They would call. I'd do a phoner hit from the water. So I didn't really know these guys well, but I had Mark Zona's phone number in my phone, so I already felt like I made it. I got called up, got to take some photos in the boat with Zona for his TV show that day. He knew something was wrong because the first 30 minutes of me being in his boat, I didn't say a word. And he's like, "Ron, everything okay?" And I was like, "I made it."
Oh, yeah.
I almost just cried right there. I said, "I made it." And he said, "Made what?" And I said, I told him that whole story. In 2010, I was a little kid. I said I was going to do it. You said, work your hardest and you'll make it. And I said, I'm here. I did it. Dang. What's left in life? I did it. I'm 21, 22. I did it. I wanted to work with you guys, and I worked hard, and I got the opportunities, and I didn't say no, and I just kept working hard, and I got to do it. And so now when I see little kids come up to me at the Classic, I hope you come take my job in 40 years, kid, please. Dang. Because that is the coolest thing in the world. It gives me chill bumps to this day that my dad put me in those positions, and it worked out the way it did. Zona gave me grace when I was a rambunctious kid. Tommy's put up with me for too many years, and it encourages me to do my hardest because there are 1,000 people who want to cut me from my job. My dad would cut me from my job. And so that every day I work hard because someone wants to take my job.
That's beautiful.
Super cool.
That's what, and that's
sorry.
No, man, you about got you seriously just because
I got all hot over here too.
Because I am very much.
They're my heroes, man.
In mine too.
I didn't grow up with Ray Scott and Bob Cobb. I woke up every morning with Tommy Sanders, Jerry McKinnis, and Mark Zona. So to see Jerry the last couple of years of his life, and he passed away, and Mike, his son, had already taken the reins over the organization. Mike is the absolute best ball. I could be madder than hell. Excuse my language. I can be madder than all get out. Come into his office, play it off cool, but I've got a bone to pick. He'll be like, "You good? Anything you need to talk about?" And I like relax, and I tell him. He's like, "Yeah, we can do that." And Mike's the best boss. He knows how to pull Zona strings, Davey strings, Tommy strings, my strings, Mercer strings, everybody's strings.
Yeah.
Sucha strings, all of those. He knows how to pull all the strings and make us work, all these personalities. Best boss ever. And he gets it from his dad. Those are the voices I heard. Tommy, Zona, Jerry. So I never got to meet Ray Scott. I'm so thankful for what he did. We're doing a lot of features of people telling stories about him because he is the innovator. If there's innovators, he is the innovator. I never got to meet Ray. I've got to meet Bob the last couple of years. But meeting Jerry, Tommy, and Zona, that's who I heard every Saturday morning. That's who I connect bass fishing with. I could be in the other room, and I'd hear, "Welcome into the Bassmaster studio," and I'd sprint to the other side of the house and say, "Dad, you didn't wait for me. You started the VCR before I got back, from the bathroom." And so it's very, very cool.
As I talk about being jaded, I'm very much the same way when I'm around certain people, but Zona's still one of those for me. And I'm a hybrid, right? Like I'm Bob Cobb, Ray Scott, and I was very fortunate to have, I was very fortunate to have experiences with those guys, and I've talked about that on here whenever Mr. Scott passed away, that I had some really cool moments with him that I got to have that I'll forever. I mean, there's a letter right over there from President George Bush that says, "My dear friend Ray Scott, telling me about your heroic act." Like,
that's
what?
Cool.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
that's cool.
These things that
I got one from George Bush for doing the amount of jumping jacks and for the Museum back in the day, but I think that was they just put his name out of the keyboard. He probably wrote yours.
It's pretty cool. But I had all these cool experiences with Mr. Scott at a young age, like 18, 19, and got to be around him many times for many years. But Zona, obviously, and Tommy once they started, they were very much a big part of every tournament that I ever watched, and I was a huge fan. I love because I have an idiot sense of humor, and Zona's an idiot, and he'll tell you that. Like I loved the Zona show, I loved everything. But the first time I ever got to talk to Mark on the phone was about TH Marine.
Yeah,
and I was like, oh my gosh, this is Zona. Like I was losing it, and still to this day, I consider him a friend.
Why did I ever get so nervous?
Yeah. But
and the last time I called him Mr. Mark was the first day I met him, and he's been Zona ever since.
Yeah. But now, I mean, it's every time he texts or he calls, and I still get a little taken back. I'm like, all right, okay. It's Mark Zona. We're buds. This is okay.
Yeah.
This is okay.
Mark Zona just texted me and asked me if I could help him with something.
I'm like,
Sarah, honestly, I know I'm got to eat dinner, but like I'm going to go take care of this first because this will be farther.
Hashtag Zona. Hashtag Zona. But it's awesome, man, to hear your story like that, and that's all anybody wants, right? Like you want to, whatever your dream is, no matter what it is. I love hearing those success stories. That are what make this country great. It's what makes life so special, man. And look, even if you're somebody that's watching, this is what I always try to say, like at the Opens, you're like, well, I can't do it now. Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can.
If it's in 5 years, it's worth it. If it's next month, just don't force it unnecessarily and burn yourself out on something.
Yeah.
I'm a man of faith. God has done more for me in my life, and He has connected even the hardships in my life. And 2 years later, I'm like, that's why. I understand now.
Things start to...
He's already doing things for next year for my life. It's already been planned out. And so when it's going to work, like they say in the Bible, you can't open doors that He shuts, and He's going to open a door that you can't be opened, And so that was a poor replication of the Bible. Don't quote me on that, but that's the premise of that verse. I need to get. I've been on the road a couple of weeks.
The Ronnie Moore.
Yeah, exactly. The message.
It's okay. It's
but yeah. So He will intervene, and it'll be so perfect. You would be like, why didn't this happen 3 years ago? And then you'll think about 3 years ago, you were going through something in life that wouldn't have you needed to be home. You didn't need to be fishing the opens. I needed to stop fishing and be home with Sarah for tough moments in our life. I needed to be present. And sometimes that's hard because you're like, why are you taking this away from me? He's never taken something away from me. He's always given me something I didn't know I needed. And so that's the same way with this as a kid who's going to run his mouth in comments only to try to inform, only to try to tell people why we do things. I always want to come off as, I don't want it to be like, well, that guy says he's a Christian and he just runs his mouth. Well, there's a lot of people. There's a lot of people who talk a lot that are great people. And so I try to be the best witness possible. I know I don't do discussions well sometimes when it's through computers because it's hard to get. It's hard to take feelings out and do facts.
You're never going to win that though.
And so I've literally had to tell myself to just breathe. And I was like, we're announcing the 2023 elite schedule. Here we go again. And then it was all positive. I said, my job here is done. I don't even have to do anything. Yeah.
I talked about it on the show last week. The schedule gripers and complainers are always out there, but they have no idea.
Just watch and see. Give it a chance.
But not even that. I think for me, I just think that empathy is a good thing in life. And I think that there are so many folks when they judge a fishing schedule come on.
Yeah.
It's not a very big deal in the grand scheme of life, but you judge the organization for the schedule drop. But man, working with NPFL, the absolute number one hardest thing, and I've been involved in discussions. Obviously, they don't call me and go, hey, Luke, we're going to go here. But we do have those conversations. We'll be on group calls, whatever. The hardest thing, other than sponsors, but the hardest thing is schedule.
Yeah.
Because
you could want to be there and they don't want you there.
You could, yeah, that's what everybody's always
saying. They could want you there and they can't afford you there.
Or people go, hey, why don't you go to these 6 lakes because they're the best lakes in the country. This is my favorite lake. I fish there. It's amazing. It's like you said, well, the Chamber of Commerce doesn't want this big event in their parking lot.
Especially
or they're not going to pay. Absolutely.
Communities couldn't host events. Communities couldn't do things.
Yes.
We had to lean on lakes that knew bass, loved bass, and trusted bass to come in and do their thing for the week and then leave it.
You guys did. Y'all handled that.
Man, Eric Lopez and the crew.
It was truly to get that season in the way you did.
NASCAR and Bassmaster. The only 2 people who did the full schedule.
Wild.
And man, we got to see a fall schedule. I want to have 1 or 2 that go in there.
I want to go back to the old days. This makes me old, but I want to go back to those days where the season starts in August, baby. Let's go. and that's how it was. The top 150.
The Classic was July or August.
And the Classic was kind of the kickoff.
Kids got to go for vacation. That's what everybody says.
That was me. Yeah, I've got pictures of me and my brother with David Fritz at the New Orleans Classics and stuff. We used to go in the summer for vacation, man. But I think people, they just don't realize what all goes into that.
There's so many different factors that I've learned that do impact those things. But it's all, I almost try to refute people's misinformation so they can sit back and enjoy the sport we all love. I know you're commenting that because you love Bassmaster so much you wanted to go out west. I know you comment that because you want to see something fresh and new so you can continue to learn. I know that. There's a lot of different things going into it. I have to commentate every minute of these events. I want to go to some great places, but I love the grinders. I remember in 2019, Stetson Blaylock wins Winyah Bay. I got a text from a well-reputable sports bass fishing writer, media person, said there's 3 professional tournaments going on right now. One was on Cherokee, one was on Chickamauga, and one was on Winyah Bay. And he said those other places have better fishing, but the storyline y'all created with Winyah Bay kept me captivated. And so I said, we just gotta, I mean, we don't know some of these places. Like, what if we didn't go and take a risk at Orange, Texas? We wouldn't know. There are hundreds of thousands of people in that region that'll drive 4 hours to see 9 pounds get weighed in because they love bass fishing and they love this sport.
I said that that's the one on the schedule I'm like, about. But at the same time, I said it'll be the most interesting one to watch next year. They always are.
The lowest weight tournament in the Bassmaster Elite Series schedule for 2022, La Crosse, Wisconsin. Most loved tournament of the year for people.
Oh, yeah, frogging and topwater.
It's a great visual. It's a different type of fishing. It's not forward-facing sonar. It's
what's Ronnie's take on that? Before we, you got to go to Little Rock, and I know that, but I'm enjoying the conversation.
Yeah, no.
What's your take on, because dude, you see and we keep going back to comments, but we see it like MPFL. We just left Sandusky, and
it's a tool they're going to use. If
they're
going to use it.
But for a coverage standpoint, it does suck at times to sit there and watch a guy stare down. I wish there were ways to bring in the actual screen for people. I think that would make it, and I know
we're working on it.
Yeah, and we've talked about ways. We had a way that we thought we could pull it off, and I still think it would be very interesting. But do you think that with forward facing, and obviously I've had a Garmin Live Scope since day one, when you could get one. I had actually one of the
first 5. I got the Panoptix Gen.
Yeah, I had that, but I was one of 5 guys that had a live scope because I was doing the iCast media release. Like, I had one on my boat. Dude, it looked like Pac-Man. I didn't even know what I was looking at. They put it on before St. Clair FLW, and I was like, what is that? Like, I turned it off. This is no joke. Daryl from Garmin puts one on my boat because I'm going down to do the media thing. Gives me zero train. I have no perspective. We put it in the water there at the harbor at St. Clair at Metro Beach. He goes, okay, this is kind of what you're looking at just for a minute. Dude, I get out there on the first, this is on the off day. So the first day of competition, I turn that bad boy on. I get to where I'm going, and I'm like,
27 pounds right now.
Well, dude, no, it's just, there's just stuff everywhere.
Yeah,
and I'm like, I'm looking at this grass, and I'm going, okay, I'm just gonna turn this off because it's just confusing. And then after I got home, I really messed with it and started to learn. But, so I'm a fan of it, obviously. But do you think that coverage-wise, I think that I really do think there are a large group of people that are tired of seeing it from a coverage standpoint. Because like you're saying,
we're going to have,
Mississippi River, dude, it's like, we love that as bass fishermen. That's the meat and potatoes, right?
We're going to have a generation of anglers that are like this.
For sure.
Because they're stuck looking at it. But I said there was one thing I noticed that it was becoming something that could be frustrating. Because they see so many fish chase their fish that they just caught in, we don't get the holdups. They grab it inside of the boat. They don't
quick.
Hold it up.
Everything's quick.
It's down here and it's in the box, and they're back up there because they saw more information than they've ever been able to see about something. We did the same thing with 2D. You just didn't see where they went. You just had to go work a little harder.
Side, and now in 360, all the tools.
It's all perspective, though. You know, back in the day when the flasher came out, people were like, "That's cheating." And then when 2D came out, they're like, "You got the flasher. Why do you need that? You got this. You got that." The one thing I'll say, coverage-wise, it is they gotta explain what they're seeing better. Probably,
yes.
They've got to, without it being a buy this graph promotion deal, because it does get shoved in our face more than it does the fans' face. We get to mute, or whatever.
Yeah.
But without a sales tactic with it, that you show the effectiveness of it, and instead of seeing 12 fish and you catch one of them and you're happy, they're going to see 300 fish during a day and they're going to catch 15 of them, but they're going to be driven even crazier than they used to because they know that there's more fish out there. So when people are like, too much pressure at Guntersville, we're going to fish this place out, you'll never catch all the fish there. Never. Because the amount of forward-facing sonar is telling us how many 3-fish spots were 37 fish spots. We just didn't know it.
Or the spots that we didn't even know existed, because we all think you fish down a stretch of docks and you're like, well, they just weren't biting today.
Yeah.
Well, then 100 yards behind you over a creek channel, there were 500 that that's where they go for whatever reason.
Yeah.
They were out there way more than we ever realized. Call it pressure, call it whatever.
You just get to see the way they react to boat pressure. You get to see the way they react to certain baits, to colors, to cadence, to that kind of deal. The one thing I want to see, I'll pitch this to you. If we put any regulations on it, because everyone's like, ban forward-facing sonar, and I'm like, you're banning technology, like you're banning
won't ever happen.
Huge investments of things. It's not a lure that can just stop being made. This is technology advancement. And that's silly. I said, do we want to go back to leather helmets, peach baskets? What do we want to do? What are we going to, I don't know how that's going to equate, but I said, I want to see no more than 4 graphs on an angler's boat. He can have 3 up front, 1 in the back, 2 up front, 2 in the back, 4 up front, none in the back. You got to have 4, and you have to you have to kind of declare what you're going to do. This event, I'm going to have 3 up front, 1 in the back. So we know you didn't add any graphs. We know you didn't take any graphs away.
Okay.
To where it's still, every boat comes with 4 graphs now almost.
Oh, I know that's right.
Except mine.
Buy mine. I'm rocking 3. I am rocking 3.
But yeah, and there are guys like Hank Cherry said when he did his boat tour video earlier this year on Facebook and stuff, he said, I've got, right now, it's January, season's about to start, I got 3 graphs, 2 up front, 1 in the back. But when I go up north, I'll add a second one, and I'll have 2 in the back and 2 up front. And so it's just different adjustments the way you do things. I think that would be the only way. You still can support sponsors, and you can still support technology. You can still have that technology, but we're not going to have, you're going to have to choose. You're going to have 360 and live with no maps. You're going to have to make your 360 smaller. You're going to have to make your live scope smaller. You're going to no longer be able to use 2D. You're not going to be able to use down. You're going to have to choose and be smart about it. You can't have 2 live scopes up front. You're only going to be able to choose 1.
Man, I've seen that. That's a thing now. Like having 2.
Oh, trust me. One of my best friends is the biggest wiring harness manufacturer, the OG, and he is I just rigged up a wiring harness for 27 live scope things, and it looks good, but man, that's a complex thing. And so it's crazy because I think that's the only way we can do it. We can't tell you, no, you can't have it, but we're going to rein it in a little bit. I think the anglers would be okay with that.
Would it ever be possible, do you think, with an organization like Bass, as big as you guys are, the OGs, the biggest trail, would it ever be possible to have a one-off event on the Elite Series where you say, and I'm not talking about where you take the guys to freaking St. Clair, where it's going to be a valuable tool for them to catch them. But I'm talking about you go somewhere maybe in May, post-fall tournament, and you go, hey, no graphs.
Yeah.
Other than mapping. Would it be possible? It's hard to police, I guess, technically.
It would have to be a 0 entry fee, no points.
Yeah. But a one-off event to kind of show people that, hey, these guys are still going to bash them.
I'm going to do a PSA to every D Wayne out there. Send us $1 if you are for no electronics tournaments, and that's the prize pool those guys will fish for. D Wayne in Alabama, send us $1. Every one of y'all send us $1.
Roll Tide.
Use that money, and we're going to use that money. That's the prize pool. No entry fee. We're going to have the best anglers in the world, and we're going to watch them catch the crap out of them like they always
That's
have
what I
done.
always say.
The winning weights. The one thing live scope and forward-facing sonar things have done. The winning weights have not gotten maybe a pound or 2, but have not gotten tremendously different. But the cut weights are.
Yes.
The competition aspect, because everyone's got it. If you don't have it, you feel like you're behind. You need it at least to look. If it's on your boat, it doesn't catch the fish for you. But man,
it's not magic.
Not at all. I mean, if it was magic, we wouldn't have people. There's got to be 50 people that don't make a check every week.
That's right.
Somebody's got to lose.
And they're all fantastic anglers.
Somebody looked at their graph for all 8 hours and they got last. And so there are guys who didn't turn one on and flipped and got 27th. Gussie used 2D at Tennessee River in Knoxville and won that event, and so I didn't really see too many events won on forward-facing sonar last year, 2021. Taku at the St. Lawrence, maybe.
Yeah, a little bit.
Everything else, we had flood conditions. Neely Henry wasn't. Pickwick wasn't.
Neely Henry you couldn't see.
No, the graph had interference from the watercolor.
Yeah, for real. I mean, it was.
But just so many of those places, you had to do something different to catch them, or it was just a tool that got you a fish or two. It's not an end-all, be-all. I don't have one on my boat. I mean, if I did sell my boat that I currently have, and when I get one in the future, I would have 1 graph up front, and it would be forward-facing sonar. Because the way I fish, I'm looking at cover, I'm fishing shallow, but if I did peek over there, there's a stump out here in front of me. Yeah. That's helpful. But my style is not to go offshore and be an offshore guru. It's going to help me learn how to fish offshore better. And so I think it's just the unknown. It's the change. Everything in fishing, unlike other sports, you got to be 6'10" in some sports. You got to be 320 and 6'5" to be D tackle in the NFL. In fishing, it doesn't matter what age you are, doesn't matter where you come from, doesn't matter what boat you have, you can compete on the Elite Series. Well, now this is the one piece of technology where people feel like that they can't compete. Before this, it was status quo. I can beat you, blah, 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 blah. These guys need to get rid of that. They're not that good. None of these guys qualified for the elites with it. When they beat you and your neighbor, they did it without it. Mark Frazier qualified in overall 2020 without it. Now he has it. Makes top 10s on it. Is he a bad guy? No, he made it to the elites without Ford. That's a task. Give me a guy who makes the elites without Ford facing Sonar.
You can't now.
No,
I don't think you can. I don't think with the schedule, the way the opens are, and dipping into the fall, and some of these tough fisheries with those big fields that do tend to push the fish off the bank, just having fished a few of them the last couple of years, you can't compete without it.
Yeah.
You will not make the Elite Series. And maybe Jason Christie may tell me otherwise because he ran through the opens.
He's one of the best with it, though.
He really is.
I got to see it. I told you about the
He's
dock thing.
He's sneaky with it.
Yeah, I got to see you about the dock thing. He's used it more than anyone else. Yeah. He's been with them since they had it.
That's right.
You know, and
he probably had the first one, honestly. It's like the Garmin Force Stroller. Like Christie has protoed most of their thing.
And he, I got to see it at his starting spot at Harwell, where it came to it didn't help him catch all the fish. But what it did, it helped him tell him how the fish were positioned, how they related to the bait. He didn't need to catch them and sore mouth them, but it allowed him to have confidence going into the tournament. And I was just happy he rolled back into the same spot he took me to because I had perspective on how the fish were oriented. He catches a couple key fish out of there. Final day, forward facing sonar didn't work for him. Where'd the fish go? Turned his brain off and went flipping and wins the classic. You know what I'm saying? So don't chalk these guys up. They're still your heroes. They're still the best anglers in the world.
They're vacuum cleaners.
They just now have to compete. And honestly, the local guys and the regional guys who fish those lakes have put so much pressure on them. There's going to be a point where it's now back in the shallow water angler's wheelhouse.
1,000,000%.
Because the fish know you're showing up when you're 100 feet away and all that stuff.
We've seen that on the Tennessee River.
You can just push schools. I can reload a school. I can relocate a school on Pickwick to my favorite spot on the lake. I'll just chase them with that thing. They'll keep swimming from me. Right. So it's pretty crazy. But I think it's all cyclical, you know? Kentucky Lake was the best lake in the country, went to the worst lake in the country. No one wants to fish it. I am really hoping we go back in the next 2 or 3 years.
Within the next 5, it'll be back.
Gunnersville had no grass. Now I can't even look at it without seeing a blade of grass somewhere. There's not a single place in the lake that doesn't have grass. So it's all cyclical in fishing. We see lakes go through the downturn, they come through the upturn. And same thing with electronics and technology. We're going to see a downturn where guys who need it to compete will start to not catch them as good. And the guys who don't need it, they utilize it, they don't need it, will still rise. And we're still seeing the same guys in the top 10 in AOI, with it or without it. You can't tell me that they're not good. They're better than that person.
There are just certain events, though,
sure.
that you better be riding with it.
Yeah. We got 3 of them next year.
Swindle called me after St. Clair 2 years ago.
2020.
Yeah, and
that was when it was like the 3rd or 4th event of the year because we had the fall.
Yes, and he and I had fished during the COVID break over on Gunnersville a couple times, and I'd gone with him, and we were fishing some eelgrass stuff, and he had 360. I'd never seen it, never been in a boat, and I was like, oh my gosh.
Probably the single best thing for finding structure.
Yeah, or holes in the grass, and like we're throwing a chatterbait, we're catching these fish. He's like, there's 5 right there on this hole in the grass as the thing stands around, you throw it there. Locked up, and you're like, oh my gosh.
I was just with G, and I don't like fishing offshore. We idle over a place, and they were dotted up on one spot. And I said, G, go first cast. He said, no, big dog, you throw it there. I got to retie this plug. I throw a jig out there, and I'm looking around, and it's bonk. And I'm like, oh, that's one of those little dots. Mm-hmm. And I set the hook on him. Tristan will know it. I was using backwards rod and reel combos. I look like the biggest fool out there trying to set the hook with my left hand instead of with my right hand. And so, but it's crazy. See fish. You know where to cast, and you can catch fish.
It makes you more efficient. Yeah. But G and I had gone, and I was talking about live scoping the eelgrass and how I could see fish, but I couldn't see those holes. And we were just going back and forth. He calls me leaving St. Clair, and he goes, Darkness, why didn't you tell me how damn good live scope? And I said, I did. It is. It's amazing. I told you. He goes, well, I just got my teeth kicked in. I was the only one that didn't have it, I swear. And he was with Humminbird at the time, and it was a contractual thing, you know. And he's like, couldn't run another brand. And now I think he's kind of got a mixed match in his boat, I believe. But anyways, he was like, I'm mad. He was truly upset. He's like, you're my Garmin friend. Like, why didn't you tell me I had to have this? It was amazing. But it certainly changed things. And what will be next? Like that's just the.
It's kind of we're in a good spot. I feel, even though it looks like the world's on fire outside, because I think about it like, you know, Strike King's got their 6XD, or you know, Zoom has their Speed Crawl. They also have their Trick Worm. They also have all these other things.
Trick Worm that doesn't do tricks, but it does catch rays.
Exactly. You know, and then you've got these companies that have, you know, you've got the Spy Bait. And, you know, there's companies that do really good things. You've got Maxent. You've got all these different things. In electronics, we've got all three brands that have something that is of use to you as an angler. And so I think that we're in a good spot where it's kind of well balanced. We're just trying to figure out how to navigate with it. And honestly, there's some desperation. People want to stay on the Elite Series. They're going to do whatever technology is available with or within the rules. You know, they're going to try to do their best to stay on the Elite Series and keep their career going, you know? And so that's
it only gets more competitive. Holy cow.
Yeah.
I think that it's more competitive.
Just stay true to yourself. If you don't want to be a live scope guy, you better learn how to catch them shallow then. You better learn how to catch them.
Get better at skipping docks.
You better learn how to do side scan better than anybody. You better you better know how to catch bass better and know where they're going to go next to be there first. So there's just different things about it, you know? If I don't know how to dunk, I better know how to make a layup in traffic in the NBA. You know, you better figure out how to do that.
You just keep going back to the NBA. Who do I need to call to get you a tryout?
I can do a couple games. I mean, I did a couple saltwater tournaments. But I said there will be one day, Luke, I will be at a game as a fan. Mike Breen, one of the best commentators of all time, he's going to get sick. He's not going to be there.
They're going to call you up.
No, I'm going to just notice it. I'm going to notice it, and I'm going to go hand a piece of paper to someone, and I'm going to say, hey,
full run.
I can fill in. This is my reel.
You're going to say, hey, I was Bassmaster run, turned saltwater
run. They're going to be like,
and now I'm basketball run.
They're going to be like, I've seen you at the Screen of Knowledge. Sit down. You know. But no, for real, opportunity. I'm telling you, I feel that way in my heart of hearts. I told Tommy I do also want to do a golf event. I want to broadcast a golf event with him. He's an avid golfer.
Oh, he loves golf. Yeah. I don't know for me, and I'm a sports nut, but I don't think I would want to commentate anything. Now, listen, if
you think I know a lot about fishing stats?
Oh, I know you're
97 notebooks of basketball. It's amazing.
Yeah, I would. Now, if you told me tomorrow I could do something in music, whether it's a podcast or, you know, something about, oh my gosh.
I can't even name my favorite song. I don't even know if it's my favorite song. That's how I'm not.
Bullets is what it's me.
Yeah. I did buy it on iTunes.
You did buy it. My family got 90 cents of the 99. We appreciate that. I was able to buy my kids a pack of crack.
That's a big royalty.
It is. When you are independent with no record labels and all that kind of stuff, yeah, the iTunes is out of a 99 cent, you get 90 cents.
Support your local artist.
If you buy it. Now, the streaming stuff is totally different. You get about a tenth of a penny for every stream. Like, it's wild.
I bought it because I couldn't rip it.
You can't rip it. Yeah, you can't rip it. Dude, I still get people that are like, hey, you got any CDs? And,
exactly.
I'm like, I don't anymore, actually. But
people don't even burn CDs anymore.
That makes me sad, too. There's nothing better than a good, especially
kids
with
these
lady.
days thinking burning CDs is when you don't know where to throw them and you get rid of them. You're just going to put them in the trash.
I got a book of CDs down here in my shop where the boat's at right now with a CD player for all my old, and I still got a bunch of old mix. There's nothing. Hey, y'all listening to us out there?
Thank you. It's like 3 hours.
Yeah, no, it's actually not. It's actually you'd be surprised. I did about 20 before you got here, but the mixtape for your lady, man. Somebody, you get that burn too.
Yeah,
you're in high school.
No doubt. Now it's so easy. I text Sarah a YouTube song. I send
I do it all the time. Done. Yeah, Marissa's a big iPhone user like me and iTunes. And so you get the little click, share a song, send it to her.
This is how young/old I am compared to some people. Like the kids in the youth group, they're seniors. I'm with the senior group. So this is our last year with them before they go to college. And they're like, you're so old. And I was like, there are Hollywood couples that are closer in age or farther in age than we are. I was like, I'm 10 years older than you. You need to stop acting. You need to mind your elders, yet make sure you know I'm not old. But I bumped my eject button on my truck driving on the road. I've owned it since 2016. I bumped the eject button and a CD came out. I was like, what is this thing? I was like, where? I put this in there.
Was it Limp Bizkit?
I was looking for, no, it's Creed. I love Creed. Arms wide open.
Oh, man. I think that's a good one to end on.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Can you give us a little, we normally take you out in Biloxi Blues. Can you give us a little, can you take me higher?
Can you take me higher?
Thank y'all so much for listening. No Biloxi Blues this week because that right there was beautiful. Ron, you're the man. That was awkward. Back that way. We were going fist.
Yep, it's all good.
Fist of Fury. Ronnie Moore, everybody.
I appreciate you, Luke.
Be sure to follow him on social media if you're not, and keep up with all the goings on at Bassmaster with all the crew. Appreciate each and every one of you tuning in every single week. Be sure to hug your mama, and we'll see y'all next week. That's it, Ron. That's it. Now we just walk off into the silence.
Who produces it? Who puts it up? Yeah, exactly.
You're looking at him.
That's why
You're
I'm looking
looking
at
at
it. When we're done, we're done. Nobody has to go redo a show. And now it's like I do a podcast. I'm like, oh, I gotta put this thing together.
Oh, dude, I gotta.